Chapter 33. Looking at the rolling brazier on the ground and the exposed Ksitigarbha Sutra, a feeling of despair welled up in Zhu Yi's heart. Could it be that this is my fate? Why did you give me hope, and then immediately make me fall into despair? This won't do. A gentleman never stops improving himself. I definitely can't be discouraged. Fatty Zhu picked up the golden paper that recorded the Ksitigarbha Sutra, looking at Zhu Yi with a face of ridicule. Young Master Yi, what is this? Zhu Yi pursed his lips, his expression already calming down. There's actually something like this in the brazier? I didn't discover it before. Fatty Zhu and the others looked at each other, all laughing loudly. Since it's like this, then we'll accept it. When the time comes, we'll hand it over to the Marquis, and let him deal with it. It's just that, young Master Yi. Since you discovered it together with us, you have to come with us. At least we can verify it in front of the Marquis. Fatty Zhu squinted his little eyes, his face full of pride. Zhu Yi calmly nodded his head. Losing the Ksitigarbha Sutra made him disappointed. But the most important thing right now is to deal with his old man Zhu Hongwu. Zhu Hongwu's rules are extremely strict. Not to mention a bastard son that isn't valued like Zhu Yi. Even the eldest son of the first wife, who has the right to inherit the title, will be punished by Zhu Hongwu's family laws, until a layer of skin is peeled off, if he makes a small mistake. If Zhu Hongwu finds out that he's secretly practicing Dao techniques, he might even lose half his life. Outside the door, Lin Feng faintly smiled. It's his turn to go on stage. If he waits until Zhu Yi is brought back to the Marquis's house, he might be grounded by the Marquis of Xuanji, and never be able to leave the Marquis's house. If he wants to take him as a disciple under the Marquis of Xuanji's eyes, the difficulty will be too great. No. This is... Lin Feng was calculating when he suddenly sensed a group of people running out from the forest, heading straight for the old temple. Lin Feng's heart trembled. What do they want to do? Could it be that their target is also Zhu Yi? This group of people is far from what Fatty Zhu and the others can compare to. Their movements in the forest are swift and nimble and orderly, actually having a bit of the elegance of soldiers. What was even worse was that there were foundation establishment cultivators among this group of people. As he thought about it, Lin Feng hit himself first. Then he saw the group of people barge into the side hall where Zhu Yi was. In the side hall, Zhu Yi, Fatty Zhu, and the others were dumbfounded as they watched the group of people barge in. As soon as they entered the room, their gazes all landed on Zhu Yi. The leader was a burly man in black with a scar on his cheek. The burly man turned around and looked at his two companions behind him. The two of them nodded in unison. It's this scholar. Outside the hall, Lin Feng felt a headache coming on. He roared in his heart. That's why I hate accidents the most. Although the other party's arrival was sudden, Zhu Yi could still maintain his composure. You're looking for me? I don't know you. Who are you? Fatty Zhu also reacted at this moment and said with a gloating smile. Young Master Yi, where did you get into trouble? Could it be that you owe someone a gambling debt? Haha. The burly man in black frowned. Noisy. Fatty Zhu's smile froze on his face flushing red. You bastard, do you know? Not waiting for him to finish, the middle-aged man in black waved his hand, as if he was chasing away flies. Other than this scholar, kill all the other Zhou dogs. The burly man's tone was extremely calm, only carrying a hint of disgust. It was as if he was really giving the order to swat flies to death. Fatty Zhu's expression instantly changed greatly, shouting angrily. You dare touch us? We're people of the house of the Marquis of Xuanji. If you dare touch a finger of mine, I'll annihilate your entire family. The burly man in black laughed bleakly. Annihilate my entire family? My entire family, old and young, have long since died in the hands of you Zhou dogs. He reached out his hand and lightly stroked the scar on his face, his expression instantly becoming incomparably cold. Marquis of Xuanji. Marquis of Xuanji. It's because we know this brat is Zhu Hongwu's son that we came. That old bastard's hands are stained with the blood of my country's people. Today we'll make him pay some interest first. The burly man in black lifted up the hem of his clothes, revealing a hexagonal snowflake pattern. Lin Feng outside the hall, and Zhu Yi inside the hall both had blank faces. Seeing the snowflake pattern, Fatty Zhu's face turned ashen, his arrogance completely disappeared. Snowflake. You're the remnants of Snow Gale country. You're people of the Society of the Strong Gale. Fatty Zhu swallowed his saliva, revealing a smile uglier than crying. Lin Feng slightly frowned. He's not clear what kind of organization the Society of the Strong Gale is, and he's also never heard of it. But he's heard of Snow Gale country. Snow Gale country is a small country located in the northern snowy plains, bordering the northern border of the Great Zhou dynasty. Over 10 years ago, during the period of the Zhou dynasty's strong expansion, it was conquered and annexed by the Zhou dynasty. At the time, the person who led the army to conquer Snow Gale country was precisely the Marquis of Xuanji. The people of the north are swift and fierce. Even though the country was subjugated, the citizens of Snow Gale country have always refused to submit. All kinds of uprisings emerged one after another. It is one of the few areas that has never been able to stabilize after the Zhou dynasty conquered the four directions. Looking at it now, this so-called Society of the Strong Gale organization is also an uprising organization formed by the remnant citizens of the already subjugated country, specifically opposing the Zhou dynasty. He just didn't expect that they would have the guts to enter deep into the heart of the Zhou dynasty and move around in the important areas of the capital region, and even set their sights on the Marquis of Xuanji. Zhu Yi clearly also understood the relationship within, opening his mouth and saying, "I'm only a bastard son that isn't valued. If you want to use me as a hostage to threaten my father, then there's no need. Because it won't work at all. My father won't make any concessions. Even if you kill me, my father won't feel that much pain. You guys coming to find me is completely finding the wrong target." The black-clothed man grinned. "Of course I know that you're not favored by that old bastard. Otherwise you wouldn't have fallen into our hands today." He stared at Zhu Yi with a smile that isn't a smile. "You don't need to belittle yourself. You're still of some use to us. For example, you grew up in the old bastard's manor. You're probably very clear about the layout of the manor, the habits of everyone, the arrangement of the guards, things like this." Zhu Yi pursed his lips, not saying a word. The sound of wind suddenly rose up beside his ears. He was startled. The black-clothed middle-aged man had already arrived in front of him at some point. The two of them were very close. The black-clothed man's face revealed a cold smile, his long scar twisting and twitching, saying word by word, "You'll tell me." Finishing speaking, he turned around and looked at Fatty Zhu and the others. His gaze was like looking at a group of dead people. He waved his hand. "Do it." Under the order, the group of cultivators of the Society of the Strong Gale all made their move. Piercingly cold mana fluctuations instantly engulfed the entire temple. These cultivators are all wanted felons in the Great Zhou dynasty. Each and every one of them are desperados who live on the edge of a knife. They have extremely rich battle experience and have great teamwork. The efficiency of releasing spells is extremely high, not wasting a single bit of mana, and using the most efficient method to kill the enemy. Fatty Zhu and the others have never seen this kind of formation before. The group of people had no strength to fight back at all. They were taken down like wheat being cut. Only Fatty Zhu of Qi Disciple level 8 has the highest level of cultivation and the fastest reaction. His fat body exploded with a speed that completely doesn't match, escaping out of the temple like flying. The black-clothed man frowned. "Don't leave anyone alive, our whereabouts can't be leaked." The two cultivators of the Society of the Strong Gale nodded their heads, chasing out of the side hall without saying a word. Outside the hall, Lin Feng secretly groaned. The development of the situation has already far deviated from his initial predictions. Luckily, the other side didn't have any plans to immediately kill Zhu Yi. This gives him time to plan. His thoughts quickly spun. Lin Feng had a rough plan, hurriedly chasing after Fatty Zhu. This fatty is still useful, he can't die. Chapter 34. Leaving the old temple, Lin Feng crushed a sound transmission crystal while swiftly moving. The crystal shard emitted a faint white light. Lin Feng said, "Little Yen, bring your junior apprentice brother to Green Sun Mountain in the west of the city, and meet up with Master." Xiao Yan's voice very quickly came out of the white light. The youth's voice was gasping for breath as he quickly replied, "Don't worry, we'll be there very soon." After one sentence, the white light gradually dimmed. The crystal shard also lost its luster, becoming the same as normal gravel. Lin Feng shook his head. This sound transmission crystal is indeed convenient. It's just a pity it's a one-time use item, and it's extremely expensive. Xiao Yan's hurried voice made him a bit uneasy. That panting appearance was as if he just fought a great battle with someone. Lin Feng's brows slightly furrowed. These two monkeys, please don't let anything happen to them. After being together for a long time, the relationship between the master and disciples became more and more intimate. Even though he clearly knows that these two disciples of the fated Son of Heaven won't easily lose out, but Lin Feng still worries for these two kids that haven't grown up yet. Lightly shaking his head, Lin Feng expelled the distracting thoughts from his mind, using the Cloud Dragon escape technique. To arrive at the place Fatty Zhu has to pass by in order to escape, and set up the formation of the 9 Heaven Thunder Summoning. Just as he finished setting it up, Fatty Zhu already appeared in his line of sight, running until he was out of breath. Ever since knowing that the newcomers are people from the Society of the Strong Gale, Fatty Zhu completely gave up on the idea of using his background. The person these Snow Gale remnant citizens hate the most is probably the Marquis of Xuanji. They can't do anything to the Marquis of Xuanji, but against a lackey of the house of the Marquis like Fatty Zhu, they definitely won't be lenient. The higher Fatty Zhu's position in the house of the Marquis, and the closer his relationship with the Marquis of Xuanji, the more ruthless the other side will be when they attack. Dad, Mom, why did you only give me 2 legs? Fatty Zhu complained in his heart. Even though he has Qi Disciple level 8 cultivation, the two people chasing him are both Qi Disciple level 9. Even though he already used up all of his strength, in the end he was still caught up by the other side. Just when Fatty Zhu was feeling despair, 9 spots of bluish-purple light suddenly lit up around him. Zzz. There was an ear-piercing sound of electricity in the air, and the bluish-purple electric arcs flickered with dazzling brilliance in the night. The expressions of the two cultivators of the Society of the Strong Gale changed greatly at the same time. The experience of countless battles told them that a great disaster was about to befall them. But before they could react, the 9 bolts of lightning had already bombarded their bodies. In the next moment, roaring thunder descended from the sky like a divine punishment from the end of the world. 2 cultivators at the 9th level of Qi Disciple were killed on the spot by the lightning. Fatty Zhu stared blankly at the pile of black ashes in front of him as his legs trembled. If the lightning had struck him, he would be the one turning into charcoal. Although he had escaped danger, Fatty Zhu couldn't relax at all. Lin Feng slowly walked out of the forest. He was wearing a white robe with wide sleeves and a feathered robe with a star crown. He looked like an immortal. Looking at the ashes on the ground after the 9 Heaven Thunder Summoning strike, Lin Feng secretly heaved a sigh of relief. He had calculated the position where Fatty Zhu had been caught. Thankfully, the deviation wasn't too great. Apart from needing time to set up and being too slow to cast, he was still very satisfied with the power of the 9 Heaven Thunder Summoning, directly insta-killing 2 cultivators at the 9th level of Qi Disciple. If he didn't use the 9 Heaven Thunder Summoning, it wouldn't have been so easy to take care of these 2 cultivators at the 9th level of Qi Disciple. The cultivation of these 2 people was much higher than that Yu family cultivator back then. But unfortunately, Lin Feng's cultivation was also far from being the same as before. Rising with the tide, the power of the 9 Heaven Thunder Summoning also increased by more than 1 level. After clearly seeing Lin Feng's appearance, Fatty Zhu composed himself and coughed dryly. Thank you, Taoist priest, for lending a hand. Everyone has the right to punish these remnants of the Snow Gale. Any citizen of the Great Zhou that encounters them naturally has the duty to. Before he finished speaking, a bolt of lightning brushed past Fatty Zhu's ear, splitting the large tree behind him in half from the middle. Lin Feng didn't even look at him, his gaze looking towards the temple Zhu Yi is at in the distance, calmly saying, "Don't be noisy next to my ear. Leave the things behind and hurry up and scram." Fatty Zhu swallowed his saliva. Taoist priest's contribution today. I will definitely report it to the Marquis. Lin Feng's gaze finally looked towards him, not carrying the slightest trace of emotion as he calmly said, "If I have time in the future, I will naturally pay a visit to Zhu Honggu. As for you, I never say the same thing twice, Yi Zichen said coldly. All the hairs on Fatty Zhu's body stood up. What did this young Taoist priest call the Marquis of Xuanji? Directly calling him by his name, Zhu Honggu. No matter what this young Taoist's cultivation is, no matter if he still dares to be this arrogant when he sees the Marquis of Xuanji himself, Fatty Zhu is certain that at least the name of the Marquis of Xuanji cannot scare this young Taoist. Fatty Zhu secretly cursed his bad luck. In the past, with the name of the Marquis, he could do whatever he wanted in the vast Tianjin city. But he didn't expect that today he would consecutively run into two groups of people who didn't put the name of the Marquis in their eyes. Touching the golden paper with the Ksitigarbha Sutra imprinted on it, Fatty Zhu was extremely reluctant to part with it. Of course he knows that Lin Feng wants this thing, but he still couldn't help but play dumb. Thing? What thing? I don't know. Lin Feng's gaze gradually became cold, looking at Fatty Zhu's body becoming colder and colder. He hurriedly said, "Don't rush, Taoist priest, the thing is here, it's here." Very reluctant to part with the golden paper, Fatty Zhu carefully placed the golden paper on the ground, saying with a mocking smile, "Taoist priest, can I leave now?" Lin Feng casually made a grabbing motion, and under the guidance of his Fa Li, he grabbed the golden paper and left without even turning his head back. Fatty Zhu felt that the Fa Li with which Lin Feng grabbed the golden paper did not seem to be outstanding. He hesitated slightly in his heart and carefully observed again, but discovered that he could not see through the depth of Lin Feng's level at all. He couldn't help but not dare to act rashly, obediently standing where he was and watching Lin Feng leave. Seeing Lin Feng disappear from his field of vision, Fatty Zhu let out a long breath, hurriedly fleeing towards Tianjin City. Something big has happened this time. Hurriedly going back and reporting to Madam is the right thing to do. The Ksitigarbha Sutra that was already in his hands is gone again. Fatty Zhu was extremely pained. Damn it, don't land in my hands or else I'll definitely let you know how powerful I am. Lin Feng did not leave, hiding in the forest and watching Fatty Zhu flee towards Tianjin City. He needs someone to return to the house of the Marquis of Xuanji to report. No matter how unfavored Zhu Yi is, he is still the son of the Marquis of Xuanji. Being kidnapped by someone, and even involving the remnant citizens of Snowgale Country, no matter if it's the Marquis of Xuanji or Madame Xiao, they will both definitely ask about it. Only with the pursuers of the house of the Marquis of Xuanji can they restrain the people of the Society of the Strong Gale, and only then can Lin Feng benefit from it. Lin Feng sensed for a bit. The crystal he left for Zhu Yi shouldn't have been exposed yet. It is currently clearly pointing out Zhu Yi's location to him. The people of the Society of the Strong Gale have already brought Zhu Yi away from the old temple, moving towards the mountains in the east. Lin Feng followed far behind them. After who knows how long, Lin Feng sensed the mark he left on Xiao Yan and Xiao Budian, hurriedly running towards the mark to find them. The moment they met, Lin Feng's brows instantly furrowed. Xiao Budian is still okay. Xiao Yan's black clothes are torn in several places, and his aura is also unstable. Clearly he just had a fierce battle with someone. Lin Feng supported his shoulder. Who did it? Xiao Yan smiled. Don't worry, master, I didn't suffer any big losses. He paused for a bit and then continued. It was originally just a small matter. Me and my junior brother were strolling around Tianjin City's market square and saw a few lechers bullying women, so we stepped in to take care of them. After teaching those lechers a lesson, we were originally preparing to leave, but we were suddenly stopped by a middle-aged man with short hair, insisting on asking me where I learned the art of Akala from. This guy is very overbearing. He wants to capture me. His level of cultivation is very high. I'm afraid he's a foundation establishment stage cultivator. If we didn't provoke the patrolling troops, it would be very hard for us to escape. Speaking up to here, Xiao Yan raised his eyebrows in confusion. It's just that the Dao technique that person uses is actually also the art of Akala. Xiao Budian suddenly said from the side. That person's hair is short. I saw that there are a few ring scars on the top of his head. Lin Feng didn't say anything. He already understood in his heart that even though that person has hair, he's most likely a monk from the Great Thunder Temple back in the day. Who would have thought that Xiao Yan's art of Akala didn't attract the attention of the great Zhou dynasty, but instead attracted Buddhist disciples? Right now I'm going to chase after your new junior brother. He's been kidnapped. Lin Feng nodded his head. Looking at Xiao Yan, he said, "But we can't just let it go like this. Remember that person's appearance. In the future we'll definitely get back at him." Xiao Yan nodded his head, and Xiao Budian smiled and said, "I'm going to have another senior brother?" Lin Feng smiled and patted his little head. "You reap what you sow." In the forest east of Qingyang Mountain, the people of the Society of the Strong Gale were rapidly advancing with Zhu Yi. The leading black-clothed man touched the scar on his face, frowning and saying, "Hui Ku still hasn't come to meet up?" The person beside him answered, "Not yet, let's not wait for him. He's always so unruly. So what if he's from the Great Thunder Temple?" Before the black-clothed man could say anything, a bell-like voice sounded out in the forest. "Nothing much, he's just stronger than all of you." Saying this, a short-haired man wearing gray clothes walked out of the dense forest. The man's face was gloomy. The short hair on his head couldn't hide the 6 conspicuous ring scars on his scalp. Chapter 35. Lin Feng chased behind the people of the Society of the Strong Gale. As he walked, he took out an old book from his chest, when his 2 disciples weren't paying attention, tearing out a page and throwing it on the ground, leaving a mark and pointing the way for the pursuers of the house of the Marquis of Xuanji. "Master, why are we following behind them sneakily like this?" Xiao Yan asked in confusion. "Can't you just directly go up and save them?" Lin Feng said with a calm expression. "Their every movement is in my eyes. Right now I'm not in a hurry to act. It's because I want to observe for a bit. See just what kind of willpower this new junior brother of yours has. See how he will perform under this kind of disadvantageous and dangerous situation." Lin Feng smiled as he looked at Xiao Yan. "Even you, I've also seriously observed you before. If it wasn't for you still persevering and not giving up under adverse circumstances, I wouldn't have taken you in as my disciple." Xiao Yan also smiled, nodding his head in belief, and didn't say anything else. Suddenly thinking of something, Lin Feng asked, "Little Yan, that monk you guys met, did he manage to cultivate the fury of the Akala?" Lin Feng only has the first half of the art of Akala, even though he can cultivate it according to the law, but there is a limit. Also, he can't cultivate the supreme ability of this Dao technique, the fury of the Akala. Xiao Yan only thought that Lin Feng wanted to teach him the Dao technique step by step, so he didn't have any suspicions. Right now, hearing Lin Feng ask him, he answered, "I'm not sure. We alerted the patrolling soldiers and surrounded that monk. Afterwards, he only managed to break out of the encirclement by activating a terrifying azure flame. Mana true flames refined from normal fire Dao techniques are all orange-yellow. According to the records of the art of Akala, the fury of the Akala should be milky white." Xiao Yan raised his eyebrows in confusion. The flame that the monk emitted was azure, but the Dao technique he cultivates is definitely the art of Akala. Lin Feng came to a conclusion after thinking for a moment. The art of Akala that the monk cultivates is not complete. Moreover, it should be missing the most important introduction. The content of the Dao technique naturally becomes more profound the further it goes, but at the beginning of the art of Akala, there are a few general scriptures that outline the main points. It looks simple, but it is actually the foundation of the entire Dao technique. Missing these sections of scripture, even if the Dao techniques at the back are complete, it is very easy for people to walk in the wrong direction when they cultivate. Even if they successfully cultivate the entire art of Akala, it will be like a castle in the air, without a good foundation, on the verge of collapse. Even though Lin Feng didn't have the contents of the second half of the art of Akala, but the first half was incomparably complete. Not a single word was missing. Xiao Yan was also meticulous in his cultivation. That monk spent his entire life studying the art of Akala. Naturally, he could tell at a glance that the art of Akala that Xiao Yan cultivates contains the general scripture. Therefore, he covetously tried to capture Xiao Yan. After Xiao Yan heard this, he smiled and asked, "Master, the art of Akala that I cultivate is also not complete. When will you pass the second half to me as well?" Lin Feng smiled, saying, "Don't bite off more than you can chew. First learn what you have now." After sending off Xiao Yin, Lin Feng laughed coldly in his heart. Touch my disciple, steal my technique? Damn Baldy, let's see who steals who. This group of people from the Society of the Strong Gale have clearly been hiding in the hinterlands of the Zhou dynasty for a long time. Not only are they familiar with the nearby terrain, they even buried a lot of hidden support and have a complete retreat route and plan. But with Lin Feng continuously pointing the way, their tracks were clearly exposed. In less than 3 days' time, the pursuers from the house of the Marquis of Xuanji have already bitten their tail. Even though their position hasn't been locked on, the pursuers have already surrounded them from all directions, blocking the people of the Society of the Strong Gale in a mountain range and continuously shrinking the encirclement. Lin Feng brought his 2 disciples and also became more and more cautious, hiding their tracks to avoid being caught in the crossfire. In the mountain forest, a group of people and horses quickly passed through. The leader was a bald old man with a hooked nose and deep eye sockets, looking like a vulture. The bald old man suddenly stopped. The people behind him also stopped. The old man's cold gaze scanned the surroundings, but he didn't discover anything. A person behind him asked in a low voice, "Old vulture, is something wrong?" Old vulture's gaze flickered. He was silent. Suddenly a piece of white bone flew out of his sleeve. That seems to be the thigh bone of some animal, pure white like jade, sparkling and translucent. The end of the bone club is incomparably thick, looking like a hammer. The bone club flew into the air, growing as it faced the wind. Originally it was only a foot long, but in the end it became a dozen meters long and as thick as a water bucket. A thick murderous aura rushed out from the bone club, intimidating all living beings in the forest and making them feel a death-like fear. Old vulture waved his hand. The bone club flew up, bringing with it a thunder-like howl, hitting a small mountain in the distance. With a loud rumble, the enormous mountain peak was directly smashed to pieces by the enormous bone club. Countless mountain rocks rumbled and rolled down the mountain, dust flying everywhere, covering the sky and covering the sun. The bone club flew back to Old Vulture's head, once again changing back to a foot long and returning to Old Vulture's sleeve. Seeing everyone look at him, Old Vulture snorted. "I keep on feeling that someone was spying on us just now. Looks like I was being overly suspicious. Let's go." The group of people once again went on their way, disappearing into the dense mountain forest. On a mountain next to the shattered mountain peak, Lin Feng and his disciple restrained their aura. After watching the bald old man's group leave, Xiao Yin let out a sigh of relief. "That old ghost is a Foundation establishment stage cultivator, right?" Lin Feng nodded his head. He's not worried that he would be discovered. The key is that Xiao Yin and Xiao Budian can very easily expose their tracks. However, it doesn't matter even if we expose ourselves a bit. Lin Feng snickered. The bald old man doesn't know that their group is actually already very close to the people of the Society of the Strong Gale. The old man's actions will definitely alarm the other party. Sure enough, a moment later intense mana fluctuations came from the valley in front of them. Lin Feng's group of 3 approached over and saw that in a dried-up river valley, Old Vulture's group of people were surrounding a gray-clothed man in the middle and currently fighting intensely. Old Vulture's bone club once again became a dozen-meter-long giant club sweeping up and down. With him as the main force, the group of cultivators all used all kinds of spells, surrounding the gray-clothed man and giving him a good beating. Xiao Yin and Xiao Budian looked at each other, simultaneously lowering their voices and saying, "Master, that gray-clothed guy is the monk that intercepted us back then." Lin Feng looked over. The gray-clothed man has a head full of spiky short hair. On the top of his head there are 6 faintly discernible ring scars. Even though he's at a disadvantage, this person is still calm and unruffled. Light green flames emitted from his body, burning fiercely. The spells released by the other party. As soon as they come into contact with the green flames, they are immediately burnt to nothing. There are people who also use fire spells to attack him, but the green flames are really too domineering. Even the red-yellow flames of the raging fire are burned together as fuel. The group of people besieged for a long time. The gray-clothed monk's green flames instead fought more and more fiercely. The fire grew bigger and bigger. Only Old Vulture's bone club magic item can pose a threat to the gray-clothed monk. Even the green flames can't block it, forcing the gray-clothed monk to have no choice but to dodge. While old Vulture controlled the magic item, he spoke to disturb the gray-clothed monk's mind. Big Monk, those people of the Society of the Strong Gale, keeping you to cover the rear, is clearly using you as cannon fodder. Only you're stupid enough to believe what they say. The gray-clothed monk Huiku was a bit angry from embarrassment. He volunteered to stay behind to cover the rear, originally wanting to show off his skills. Who knew that he would instead be entangled by the opponent? Like this, how can he make those people of the Society of the Strong Gale believe him? Huiku said in his heart. After this I must capture that brat I met that day. If I can cultivate the true fury of the unraging Wisdom King, then why would I have to go through so much effort? While he was thinking, a streak of sword light suddenly flew over from afar, chopping down towards Huiku's head. The green flames were actually completely unable to block it. Huiku was greatly shocked, dodging to the side. The sword light missed and cut onto a mountain behind Huiku, actually completely cutting the mountain in half. The huge mountain top tumbled down. Amidst the loud rumbling, the earth shook, and the mountains shook like an earthquake. After the mountain top fell, the cut surface of the mountain top was as smooth as a mirror. Lin Feng, who was hiding on the side, frowned slightly as he saw this. What a strong sword cultivator! His own cultivation is at the foundation establishment stage, and he even has a high-quality flying sword. A black-clothed swordsman appeared on the field, his dark gaze staring at Huiku. Huiku looked at the black-clothed swordsman, but his attention didn't dare to place on him alone. Out of the corner of his eyes he glanced in another direction. Sure enough, a white-robed middle-aged man slowly walked out of the forest, dressed like a scholar, but the vast mana fluctuations around his body shows that he is a foundation establishment stage cultivator of the same level as the black-clothed swordsman and old Vulture. Who would have thought that the remnants of the Great Thunder Temple would actually mix together with the Society of the Strong Gale? The white-robed scholar clicked his tongue in wonder. While sizing up Huiku, he raised his hand and shot out several beams of white light. The white light flew into the air and exploded, turning into a curtain of light that enveloped the nearby mountains. Huiku looked at him coldly. The white-robed scholar smiled casually. I've already sealed off the surrounding area with a formation. You won't be able to escape. Finishing, he, the black-clothed swordsman and old Vulture, the three of them stood in a triangular formation, surrounding Huiku in the middle. The other Qi disciple stage cultivators were scattered around the perimeter. Lin Feng frowned as he looked. The cultivation of these three people are all around the same level as Huiku. 3 against 1. Don't even mention escaping for Huiku. Being able to drag one of them down with him is already pretty good. Most likely, he'll even be captured alive. Right when Lin Feng was thinking, he suddenly saw a hint of a sinister smile appear on Huiku's face that doesn't match his identity as a monk at all. The gray-clothed monk chuckled, saying, "The ones that won't be able to escape are you guys." Before his voice even landed, Huiku raised both his hands. 24 specks of light flew into the air, forming a wondrous formation. Lin Feng's expression changed slightly. He felt an extremely terrifying energy fluctuation from within that formation. This kind of threat that touches the soul. He also felt it before from that golden elixir period elder of the Blaze Sword sect. Chapter 36. Lin Feng looked carefully and discovered that the 24 specks of light thrown into the air by Huiku were actually brown beads, each of them the size of a walnut, emitting a golden radiance in the air. Lin Feng's nose twitched, smelling a faint sandalwood fragrance. The 24 beads in the air all emitted a tranquil and vast aura. Facing the 24 beads, Lin Feng was like facing 24 enlightened monks. The expressions of the 3 foundation establishment stage cultivators surrounding Huiku all changed slightly. The white-robed middle-aged man looked at Huiku in shock. "Saraira, these are Saraira? You actually have 24 Saraira. Could it be that you refine the Saraira of your seniors into magic items?" Hearing this, old Vulture and the black-clothed swordsman's expressions became incomparably gloomy. The black-clothed swordsman opened his mouth for the first time since appearing. Scum who deceives their masters and exterminates their ancestors. In the process of the 24 Saraira rising into the air, An instant of pain and guilt flashed through Huiku's eyes. But immediately afterwards it was endless fury and viciousness. Hearing the black-clothed swordsman's cursing, Huiku laughed loudly, his expression deranged. Even if this poor monk risks falling into endless hell, I'll make you evil demons pay the price. This is the guidance that Buddha gave this poor monk. The seniors in the sect will definitely understand this poor monk. He put his palms together and shouted in a deep voice. Buddha is merciful, sweep away all demons. 24 Heaven Arhat formation, open. Following Huiku's shout, the 24 Saraira in the air all exploded with dazzling Buddhist light. The Buddhist light gathered together, turning into a golden cloud, completely enveloping the area around Huiku in a radius of 100 feet. Buddhist chanting came from within the Buddhist light, overlapping together, deafening. Old Vulture and the others were all enveloped by the Buddhist light, as if they were in an independent space, completely isolated from the outside world. The white-robed middle-aged man shook his head. Want to fight with me in formations? Big monk, you're not my opponent. You're just asking to be humiliated. Halfway through his sentence he suddenly stopped. The white-robed middle-aged man stared dumbstruck ahead. Old Vulture and the black-clothed swordsman also had the same appearance. The other Chi disciple stage cultivators were all trembling in fear. Amidst the Buddhist light, layers upon layers of figures suddenly appeared. Each of them was more than 10 feet tall, and their bodies were flashing with golden light. They were all Vajra Arhats, and each of them exuded an extremely terrifying aura. There were a total of 24 Arhat shadows. Each of them had a mana fluctuation comparable to a foundation establishment cultivator. 24 foundation establishment cultivators. Lin Feng and company stared blankly. This monk was way too ferocious. He actually had such a powerful Dharma artifact. Good fella. A magic tool can manifest 24 foundation establishment cultivators. Whoever has such a magic tool can walk unhindered in the foundation establishment stage. Lin Feng swallowed his saliva, his eyes filled with envy. Not to mention the building foundation stage. Even if he ran into an ordinary golden elixir period cultivator, he would be able to protect himself. No wonder this bald bastard dared to stay behind to cover the rear. Huiku's figure was hidden in the Buddhist light, disappearing without a trace. There were only 24 Arhat shadows putting their palms together, chanting Buddhist names in a low voice. Buddha is merciful, repent and the shore is at hand. The voice was like a morning bell and evening drum, shaking people's souls, making the people in the Buddhist light have an illusion for a moment, as if they had committed the most heinous of crimes and deserved to be suppressed and captured, and sent into reincarnation. The three of them were all foundation establishment cultivators. Their wills were firm, and they reacted very quickly. Those Chi disciple stage cultivators were not injured, but they all fell limply to the ground, already losing the will to resist. Lin Feng felt a chill all over from the side of the mountain. 24 Buddhist foundation establishment cultivators shouting in unison. They didn't need to injure the enemy at all to suppress them, and make them lose the will to resist. What weakness does this 20 Heaven Arhat formation have? Because of the formation, it's hard to easily move it? Lin Feng's thoughts turned quickly, thinking of countermeasures. Extremely mana-consuming? Or are these Arhat shadows just for show to scare people? The other side very quickly used practical actions to answer Lin Feng's question. Seeing that Mr. Vulture and the other two didn't yield, the 24 Arhat shadows once again chanted the name of Buddha in a low voice, and then rushed over in groups of 3 to 5. The black-clothed swordsman snorted coldly, sword light flashed, and it chopped on a golden Arhat. Stab! An ear-piercing metal scraping sound rang out. The flying sword that can cut through mountains only broke a crack on the chest of the golden Arhat. The golden Arhat was completely oblivious, a pair of large hands directly grabbing at the flying sword. The black-clothed swordsman controlled the flying sword to retreat, but there were two other golden Arhats pincer attacking from the left and right. 4 chapters came out at the same time. The resplendent Buddhist light, almost condensed into a solid, actually firmly locking the agile flying sword in midair. The other two golden Arhats howled and rushed towards the black-clothed swordsman, water tank-sized fists smashing down. Good bald donkey. The black-clothed swordsman's expression changed greatly. His entire cultivation is on one flying sword. Losing the flying sword, his battle strength immediately drops greatly. He can only dodge in a sorry state, at the same time calling back the flying sword with all his strength. The flying sword struggled with all its might in the Buddhist light, making ear-piercing humming sounds. The sword blade was even somewhat distorted, but no matter what, it couldn't escape the imprisonment of the Buddhist light. Instead, the 3 golden arhats that trapped the flying sword were still continuously increasing their strength. 6 large palms gathered together. The Buddhist light in the center of the palms became stronger and stronger. The black-clothed swordsman's flying sword started emitting thick smoke. The flying sword continuously hummed, as if it had a life of its own, making miserable wails. Looking at this scene, Lin Feng can already completely confirm that Hui Ku's magic item can really manifest the silhouettes of 24 arhats with the strength of the foundation establishment stage. Maybe their IQ isn't high enough. Maybe they aren't nimble enough. Maybe they look like they can only fight hand to hand and don't know spells. But these golden arhats, in terms of mana cultivation, every single one of them has the level of a foundation establishment stage cultivator. And they clearly don't know pain, don't fear getting injured, can unhesitatingly adopt the life-for-life fighting method. 10 golden arhats even stayed where they were without moving. The other 14 attacked together, instantly beating up Mr. Vulture, and the other 2 until they pissed their pants in terror. With such a huge difference in strength, Mr. Vulture and the other 2 wouldn't even have the chance to perish together. Whether they're captured alive or crushed to death, it all depends on Hui Ku's mood. No one would have thought that Hui Ku would actually be so ferocious. It was originally a hopeless situation of 1 versus 3, but it actually instantly flipped, becoming 24 versus 3. In the hearts of Mr. Vulture and the other 2. Right now there are undoubtedly millions of grassland horses, covered in mud, madly galloping past. Lin Feng was also secretly depressed. Xiaoyan, this destined one, is indeed extraordinary. The first enemy he provoked is already so ferocious. What he didn't expect even more is that this thieving baldy is actually in cahoots with the Society of the Strong Gale that kidnapped Zhu Yi, protecting Xiaoyan, saving Zhu Yi. They both have to pass through Hui Ku. Thinking up to here, a cold light flickered in Lin Feng's eyes. I can't let him be so easy. I have to punish him. I have to find his weakness first. Lin Feng thought for a bit, then pulled Xiaoyan over, instructing a few words in a low voice next to his ear. Xiaoyan was dazed. What is this for? Lin Feng pretended to be profound, lightly replying, I have my own plans. You just have to do as I say. Here today, there might be a fortuitous encounter for you. Xiaoyan curled his lips. Master, don't lie to me. Lin Feng raised his hand, laughingly scolding. Stinking brat, you're looking for a beating. Xiaoyan stuck out his tongue, running down the mountain like a wisp of smoke, arriving near the mist formed by the Buddhist light. He followed Lin Feng's instructions and wandered around the Buddhist light a few times, immediately being discovered by monk Hui Ku in the mist of light. Wearing out iron shoes in fruitless search, finding it by chance without even looking for it, Hui Ku was first overjoyed. Looking at Mr. Vulture and the other 2 people in the Buddhist light, he then became worried. We're about to take care of these evil people. Giving up is really a pity, but what if we delay the time and let that brat escape? After hesitating for a bit, Hui Ku clenched his teeth, opening the leather bag he carried with him, releasing a small snake. The small snake grew in the air, actually turning into a 100-meter-long golden python. Its head was the size of a small house, its mouth full of sharp teeth, the length and thickness of elephant tusks. Hui Ku stretched out his hand and pointed at Xiaoyan. I want him alive. The golden python landed on the ground, charging towards Xiaoyan like an arrow. Xiaoyan was slightly shocked when he saw the golden python. When the python crawled, it actually didn't have the slightest bit of fishy smell. Instead, it emitted a faint sandalwood fragrance. There were 2 small bumps on the top of the python's head, like the horns on a flood dragon's head. It crawled on the ground as fast as lightning. The battle strength of this kind of vicious beast is enough to match up to a Qi disciple level 10 and above cultivator. Lin Feng's warning appeared in Xiaoyan's mind at this time. If that monk uses magic items or spirit pets to deal with you, Don't get entangled where you are. Just run towards the mountain forest in the distance. Xiao Yan curled his lips, turning around and running, the golden python closely chasing behind him. Lin Feng watched from the top of the mountain as Xiao Yan and the giant python, one escaping and one chasing, running further and further away. Hui Ku was in the light of Buddha formation, but didn't give chase in the end. Seeing this, a sunny and warm smile once again appeared on Lin Feng's face. Chapter 37. Hui Ku only sent out the golden giant python to chase after Xiao Yan, and he himself was still guarding within the Buddhist light formation. Seeing this, Lin Feng understood. As expected, those 24 golden arhats can only move within a radius of 100 zhang that is covered by the Buddhist light. That big monk, as the one in charge, can't leave the range of the Buddhist light either. And from the looks of it, Hui Ku was wholeheartedly in charge of the formation, and his other cultivation couldn't be used. Lin Feng thought. There's only one crucial point that I can't be sure of, and that is the 24 sariras for the formation. Is any one of them indispensable? As long as one is missing, will the formation be unable to be maintained? As Lin Feng thought, he calmly said to Xiao Budian beside him, "Go help your big senior brother. I'll leave that snake to you too. I won't do anything. This can be considered a test for you too." Xiao Budian didn't panic after hearing this. Instead, he was eager to try, and smiled even more mischievously. "Master, after we kill that snake, will the snake blood and snake meat belong to us too?" Lin Feng knocked his little head and scolded jokingly. "Stinking brat. All you know is to eat all day long." Xiao Budian laughed mischievously, and Lin Feng shook his head in annoyance. "Go. How much you can get will depend on your own ability." "Thank you, master." Xiao Budian cheered, and disappeared in the blink of an eye, rushing in the direction of Xiao Yan and the giant python. This golden giant python was a natural variant, and it was tamed by Hui Ku using a secret Buddhist method. Its strength and speed were astonishingly fast, far surpassing normal fierce beasts. If not for the fact that Lin Feng had already taught Xiao Yan the cloud dragon escape, he wouldn't have been able to outrun this giant snake. This guy is like a small mountain when he coils up. His speed is so fast with such a big body. Xiao Yan cursed in his heart, and his body suddenly made a strange turn, avoiding the snake's mouth that was pouncing at him from behind. The giant python's head was as big as a small house, and swallowing Xiao Yan whole was a piece of cake. "Senior brother, here." As Xiao Yan was running, he suddenly heard Xiao Budian's voice, and looked up to see Xiao Budian waving at him from a mountain. "This brat, don't tell me." Xiao Yan's heart moved, and he immediately changed directions, running towards the mountain peak where Xiao Budian was. The golden giant python followed closely behind him, sweeping through all obstacles. Wherever its huge body passed, rocks exploded, and towering ancient trees fell like harvested wheat. "Let me test your power." On top of the mountain peak, the little guy soared into the air. His body was like a cloud dragon, and he stood out from the crowd as he directly pounced towards the head of the huge golden python. The golden python let out a soundless roar, and opened its big mouth to bite towards Xiao Budian. Xiao Budian's figure flashed in midair, and he had already avoided the blood pond-like mouth of the snake, nimbly landing on the snake's neck. The little guy laughed and said, "To beat a snake, you have to hit it where it hurts. Even though you're big, I can still feel where it hurts." After he finished speaking, he kicked the huge snake's body. Lightning flashed on his toes, and his small body brought with it the sound of wind and thunder. His momentum was not any weaker than the golden giant python. Lightning exploded, setting off a few rays of golden light and a smear of blood red. It was the snake's scales and blood. Under Xiao Budian's kick, the golden giant python was injured. The giant python hissed angrily and twisted its body. Its thick and long golden tail swept towards Xiao Budian. If he was hit, no matter how strong Xiao Budian's body was, he would still be beaten into meat paste. However, Xiao Budian would not fight it head-on. He nimbly dodged to the side, and avoided the giant python's counterattack. Xiao Yan, who had been chased by the giant python, silently appeared at this moment. After avoiding the giant python's tail, he came to its back, and his target was the wound that Xiao Budian had just made. A ruthless look appeared on Xiao Yan's face. "You long worm, you chased me very happily just now, didn't you?" With a flip of his palm, the explosive fire magic power quickly condensed and actually turned into a real raging fire, burning fiercely above Xiao Yan's palm. In the next moment, the blazing fire seemed to be suppressed. Xiao Yan did not let the flames continue to spread, but instead continued to compress towards the center. His hands stretched out horizontally, and his palms were a foot apart from each other. The scarlet-red flames continued to compress and condense between his palms, finally turning into a small red ball of light. Although the ball of light was small, it contained a terrifying heat and explosive power. It was like a small sun, filled with an oppressive, destructive, and tyrannical aura. It was the secret ability of the Taishu Temple that Yin Mingyue had passed down to Xiao Yan, Red Lotus Break. The small ball of light was only the size of a human fist, and its size was completely disproportionate to the golden giant python. However, the giant python sensed danger immediately, and its pair of cold vertical pupils actually revealed fear. Xiao Yan pushed forward with both of his hands, and the small red ball of light flew towards the wound on the giant python's body. The golden giant python wanted to dodge, but the flying speed of the ball of light was extremely fast, not giving it the chance to dodge at all, and it directly hit the target. Time seemed to have stopped at this moment, and then the still scene suddenly shattered. Violent raging flames exploded with a roar, and the powerful power seemed to want to shatter this piece of space. Hiss, 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 hiss. The golden giant python let out a hurried and miserable howl. Half of its body was surrounded by raging flames, and it kept rolling in the forest in pain. Although Lin Feng was paying attention to the battle of Hui Ku and the others, he also split half of his attention to look at Xiao Yan and the others. Seeing his two disciples cooperate well with each other, and that the 100-meter-long giant python had no power to retaliate, Lin Feng grinned. "These two stinking brats are really ruthless." Shaking his head, Lin Feng felt that there was no more suspense in this battle, but his heart suddenly moved, and he felt that a change had occurred on the body of the golden giant python. Amidst the miserable howl, the golden giant python opened its mouth, and rays of golden light suddenly shot out from its mouth. Waves of Buddhist chants actually came out from its mouth, and a wave of boundless Buddhist mana spread out. Lin Feng looked carefully, and saw that a small ball of light gradually rose from the mouth of the giant python, and it was so bright that it was difficult to open one's eyes. The Buddhist light and Buddhist chants were precisely coming from this ball of light. The ball of light left the giant python's body, and the golden scales on the giant python's body dimmed a lot. The sandalwood fragrance disappeared, and a thick snake and insect stench came out. The giant python stared coldly at Xiao Yan and Xiao Budian with a pair of pupils that were like vertical lines, and the killing intent in its eyes overflowed to the heavens. The two brats also immediately realized that something was wrong, and fled in different directions. Just as they left the place where they were originally standing, a ray of resplendent golden light shot out from the ball of light in the snake's mouth, and bombarded the mountain peak. The golden light disappeared, and a clear round hole appeared in the center of the giant mountain peak. Through the round hole, one could clearly see the scenery in the distance. This ray of golden light directly pierced through the mountain peak. Lin Feng was slightly shocked. This power was already comparable to the attack of a Foundation establishment stage cultivator. At this time, he could already clearly see that in the center of the ball of light, there was a strangely shaped magic item, and the waves of magic power were constantly vibrating. Although it was vigorous and vast, it was not stable enough. This magic item has been damaged before. Lin Feng's head turned, and he instantly understood. That big monk really had a good idea. Hui Ku actually used the vitality of a strange giant snake to nourish the damaged magic item, so that the magic item could recover as soon as possible. At the same time, he used the magic item's spiritual power to nourish this giant python, so that the giant python could become stronger and quickly increase its strength. But this way, Lin Feng could not just sit by and do nothing. This giant snake had already become a huge threat to Xiao Yan and Xiao Budian. Xiao Yan and Xiao Budian also realized that this giant snake was going to use its real power, and Xiao Budian shouted, "Senior brother, don't panic. If it doesn't have some ability, all of my arrangements would have been in vain." Saying that, Xiao Budian clasped his hands together, formed a seal and shouted, "Move!" 9 purple spots of light rose around the mountain peak, and in the violent sound of electric currents, 9 rays of lightning shot towards the golden giant python together. Lin Feng had already established his own expert impression in the hearts of his 2 disciples, so some things could no longer be hidden, and he could pass them on to increase their strength. Right now, Xiao Budian was using the 9 heaven thunder summoning that Lin Feng had passed on to him. The first 9 rays of lightning did not cause any damage to the giant snake, but in the next moment, the lightning that descended from the sky heavily struck its body and directly split the back half of its body, including its tail. The formation's powerful attack that borrowed the power of heaven and earth was vividly displayed at this moment. Xiao Yan watched from the side and couldn't help but shout, "Beautiful! Beautifully done! Be careful, dodge!" Xiao Budian was originally feeling proud, but after hearing Xiao Yan's warning, he realized that the golden giant python had suffered such a heavy injury, and instead went berserk. The giant head suddenly raised and looked down at Xiao Budian, who was caught off guard. The snake opened its mouth wide, and scriptures flowed on the golden magic item. The bright golden light condensed once again, and in the next moment, it was about to strike Xiao Budian's body. Chapter 38. Xiao Budian only felt that the sky above his head suddenly darkened. That was the head of the giant python. In the next moment, the dark top of his head suddenly lit up, so bright that people couldn't open their eyes. That was the light emitted by the magic tool in the mouth of the giant python. Vigorous waves of magical power spread out, terrifying to the extreme. "Dodge!" Xiao Yan suddenly rushed over from the side, knocking Xiao Budian away. Although Xiao Budian escaped the attack range of the giant python, Xiao Yan exposed himself under the snake's mouth, facing that terrifying Buddhist magic tool. Xiao Budian exclaimed, "Eldest senior brother!" The bravery in the black-clothed youth's bones was completely stimulated. Facing the dazzling golden Buddhist light, he didn't dodge, but raised his hands. In between his palms, a scarlet-red ball of light floated, filled with a destructive and blazing aura. "Let's see who's finished first." Xiao Yan clenched his teeth, facing the Buddhist light that could turn him into powder in one hit. He took the initiative to use the red lotus burst. The red ball of light turned into a ray of scarlet light and flew into the huge python's wide-open mouth. At the same time, the mana of the Buddhist magic item in the snake's mouth was also accumulated to the extreme, turning into a ray of resplendent Buddhist light, about to blast toward Xiao Yan. Xiao Yan's red lotus burst was a step faster, only 1,000th of a second faster than the Buddhist light, exploding in the snake's mouth first. But the indestructible Buddhist light had already condensed. Would it dissipate because of the explosion? Xiao Yan and the little guy both didn't know the answer, because a ray of white lightning that was even more tyrannical and berserk than the Buddha's light traversed the horizon. It was even faster than the red lotus break, and it struck the huge snake's head. Northern Aurora Mystic Light. The tyrannical lightning directly punched a big hole in the head of the golden python. After penetrating the snake's head, it fiercely hit the Buddhist magic tool. The magic tool made a sound. The Buddhist light that was originally prepared to attack Xiao Yan was forced to be used to defend itself, no longer having the strength to attack. At this time, Xiao Yan's red lotus burst exploded in the snake's mouth, blowing the already heavily injured giant python's head into a bloody mist. "Master!" Xiao Budian cheered. At this time, Xiao Yan was also covered in cold sweat. "Master, you almost played me to death." Lin Feng landed beside them, dressed in a feathered robe and a star crown. He looked even more elegant and otherworldly in the forest that was in a mess after the battle. Lin Feng raised his hand and caught the falling Buddhist artifact. He turned to Xiao Yan and said with a smile, "I've already said that you might have a fortuitous encounter today. It's just a daunting experience without any mishaps." As Lin Feng spoke, he raised the Buddhist artifact in his hand and shook it. "When I erase the restrictions set by the original owner, this thing will be yours." Xiao Yan was overjoyed. "Haha, I didn't risk my life for nothing." Lin Feng looked at him with a smile. Little Yan, you're very good. You're behaving like a senior brother. Xiao Budian grabbed Xiao Yan's hand and said, That's right, senior brother, it's all thanks to you. Xiao Yan raised his eyebrows and said arrogantly, It's what I should do. Unexpectedly, Xiao Budian continued to say, Although I can dodge it myself, I still have to thank you. Suddenly, Xiao Yan was so angry that he didn't know whether to laugh or cry. It turned out that this junior brother was even more arrogant than him. Xiao Budian turned to Lin Feng and asked, Master, that artifact belongs to senior brother. What about me? Lin Feng pointed to the dead python. Aren't you thinking about it? It's all yours. How much you can take depends on your own ability. After a pause, Lin Feng continued, Collect more snake blood and snake gallbladders. You're almost 5 years old. These are all good materials for your baptism. Xiao Budian cheered and rushed to the giant snake. Although he was young, he followed the adults to hunt in the village, so collecting these materials was a piece of cake. Hearing that Lin Feng wanted to baptize Xiao Budian, Xiao Yan also went up to help. A child's baptism when they are 5 years old has a very important effect on the foundation of the fleshly body. Xiao Yan couldn't help but be fascinated. Junior brother's talent is already so strong right now. If you go through the baptism, how terrifying would it be? Just thinking about it makes me look forward to it. The two disciples were busily pulling out the tendons and skinning the giant snake. Lin Feng's attention had already returned to Hui Ku and the others. Not sure if it was because he sensed that the giant snake was killed and the artifact was taken. Hui Ku's state of mind fluctuated violently, almost unable to maintain that overbearing 24 heaven Arhat formation. Old Vulture and the other two were already about to despair when facing a hopeless situation where there was no chance of survival. But they didn't expect that something would happen to Hui Ku himself. The three people in the formation immediately sensed the change, and hope rose in their hearts again. The three all knew that it was a moment of life and death, so they all exploded out with their strongest methods. They didn't hope to defeat Hui Ku, but only hoped to kill their way out of the Buddha light formation. The three of them risked their lives together, and Hui Ku wasn't in his best condition. They actually really let them charge out of the formation. Hui Ku saw that he was about to lose everything and shouted loudly in anger, barely concentrating his mind. The power of the 24 heaven Arhat formation was circulated to the extreme by him. The 24 Arhat silhouettes gathered together, chanting the name of Buddha together. The Buddha light above their heads gathered together, transforming into 2 giant hands that covered the sky. The 2 giant Buddha palms descended from the sky, directly smashing the white-robed middle-aged man and the black-clothed swordsman onto the ground. Only old Vulture was left out. How could the bald old man still care about his companions right now? Spitting out a mouthful of essence blood onto the bone rod magic artifact. The bone rod that was as pure white as jade became more and more sparkling and translucent, even faintly flashing with red light. It directly became over 100 meters long, heavily smashing onto the Buddha light formation, directly piercing through the Buddha light, and bringing old Vulture out of the range of the formation. Hui Ku was furious. The giant palm formed from Buddha light smashing towards old Vulture. Old Vulture raised the bone rod and barely managed to block it, but was beaten until he spat out a mouthful of blood, his mana pretty much all scattered. Taking this hit, old Vulture was sent flying together with the bone rod, directly passing over a mountain and falling into the forest over 10 miles away. Old Vulture laid on the ground, spitting out another mouthful of blood. He felt all the bones in his body shatter into pieces, his organs all changing positions. This monk is so ruthless, actually refining the Sarira of his seniors into a magic artifact. This won't do. I have to go back and find even more experts to be able to subdue this fiend. Old Vulture struggled to crawl up from the ground. In his heart he was also somewhat glad that 3 people were trapped, and only he managed to escape. However, thinking up to here, old Vulture's scalp suddenly went numb, his hair standing on end, as if some disaster was about to befall him. He had a bad premonition and was about to react, but it was still too late. Without a sound, Lin Feng appeared behind him. What he was holding in his hand was precisely old Vulture's bone rod magic artifact. Right now it had already shrunk to its original length of 1 foot, being used by Lin Feng as a hammer, smashing onto the back of old Vulture's head with a dong sound. Old Vulture let out a loud cry, dizziness in his eyes. Even though he was heavily injured, his mana still surged madly, resisting with all his might, not wanting to let himself faint, and even more wanting to turn around to see who it was. But just as he turned around, before he even saw the person, there was an expanse of snow white pressing down. A large white bone rod once again smashed down, smashing onto his head. Dong old Vulture's eyes rolled back, being completely knocked down. The last thought in his mind was, why does this large white bone rod seem like my own white bone hammer? Lin Feng weighed the white bone hammer in his hand. This magic artifact's vitality was greatly damaged by the Buddhist light large hand manifested by Hui Ku. Being held in his hand to attack its owner, it didn't even resist. The mana fluctuations in the magic artifact are also very weak. Looks like it needs to recuperate for a very long time before it can recover to its original state. But using it as a hammer to hit people is rather convenient. The length, thickness, and weight are all just right. Just as he was thinking, Lin Feng suddenly discovered that the 2 disciples beside him were both looking at him with dumbfounded expressions, their gazes moving back and forth between Lin Feng's face and the white bone hammer in his hand. Lin Feng's expression was calm, coughing dryly. Did you all see it clearly? Using the Baihui point at the top of the head as a marker, 1 inch forward or backward, hitting these 2 places can make people quickly faint. Did you all learn it? Xiao Budian blankly nodded his head, while the corners of Xiao Yan's mouth twitched. Master, isn't this just a sneak attack? Wrong. Master is showing you guys the correct way to capture an enemy alive. Lin Feng said with a deadpan expression. If you didn't pay attention, Master will demonstrate it again. While speaking, Lin Feng sent out a strand of lightning mana, stimulating old Vulture's acupuncture points, and causing the fainted old Vulture to wake up. The bald old man woke up and murmured, "What the hell is going on? It seems like someone is sneak attacking me." Before even understanding the surrounding environment, old Vulture's hair suddenly stood on end. His scalp went numb. A familiar feeling came again. Boom! He felt a piercing pain at the back of his head. Everything in front of his eyes went black. It was the same feeling as last time. He was sneak attacked again. Again! Old Vulture forcefully endured the pain, while using all his strength to open his eyes to ensure that he didn't immediately faint. He also did his best to turn his head. This time he had to clearly see just who was sneak attacking him again and again. What entered his eyes was still a field of white. Old Vulture couldn't help but curse out. It really is this old man's white bone hammer. But before he could see even more clearly, a hammer came down, once again hitting his head. Old Vulture's eyes rolled back. Carrying a monstrous rage and endless regret, he fainted again. Lin Feng turned his head with a calm expression, indifferently asking, "Did you see it clearly this time?" Xiao Yan was dumbstruck. Xiao Budian clapped his hands and smiled, saying, "I saw it clearly. Master, can I also try?" Lin Feng smiled and handed the white bone hammer to Xiao Budian. "Try is try. Have some sense of propriety. Don't kill him. Master still has things to ask him in a bit." Xiao Yan watched as Xiao Budian excitedly walked towards the continuously knocked unconscious old Vulture, and couldn't help but shake his head, turning his head to the side. What was going to happen next was simply impossible to look straight at. Chapter 39. After capturing Elder Vulture, Lin Feng relaxed. As for the black-clothed swordsman and white-robed middle-aged man, he could only say that he was unable to help. Right now his mind is all on this Buddhist magic item, that seems like a pestle yet not a pestle, seems like an all yet not an all. After searching the exchange system for a bit, Lin Feng confirmed that this magic item is one of the legendary 10 great Buddhist guardian Buddhist weapons, the Thundershock Staff. The 10 great guardian Buddhist weapons of Buddhism were all earth-shattering treasures with great power. When the 10 Buddhist weapons were combined, they were known as the 10 Realms, and they were the treasures of the Great Lane Monastery. True Buddhist guardian Buddhist weapons are all high-quality magic treasures, They are treasures that only primordial spirit cultivators can refine. But the method of refining Buddhist weapons is very widespread. In the Great Thunder Monastery, monks of all cultivation levels can refine them. It's just that the Buddhist weapons refined by cultivators below primordial spirit are all magic items and can only be considered replicas. The Thundershock staff Hui Ku is refining right now belongs to this kind of replicas. Lin Feng was slightly disappointed. So it's not a damaged treasure, it's just that this monk hasn't successfully refined it yet. Even though it hasn't been successfully refined, the power of this magic item is enough to move people. It is worthy of the name of the Thundershock Staff Guardian Buddhist weapon. According to the Buddhist scriptures, there was an ancient monarch who was muddle-headed and tyrannical. His people were all addicted to wine, women, wealth, and temper, their crooked tendencies soaring to the heavens, incurring the wrath of the heavens. The land suffered from a terrible drought. Sandstorms buried the entire kingdom underground. Torrential rains caused floods and plagues to spread, causing disaster for thousands of miles. All humans and animals died. It was like purgatory. The Buddha descended to preach. He couldn't bear to see the people in misery, and was willing to sacrifice himself to take the calamity on behalf of all living beings. There was a thunder god in the sky who was naturally violent. He actually shot down a magic-casting divine weapon and pierced through the top of the Buddha's head. But the spiritual divine weapon was transformed by the Buddha's benevolence and turned into a Buddhist weapon with unparalleled power, splitting the earth into a ditch and directing the flood into the sea, dispelling the calamity. And this magic item is the Thundershock staff. Lin Feng doesn't believe in this kind of Buddhist legend that clearly puts gold on his face, but this doesn't stop him from realizing from this legend that the greatest function of the Thundershock staff isn't actually to initiate an attack, but to dissolve other people's attacks. Astonishing defensive power is this magic item's true advantage. Lin Feng carefully observed for a bit. The Thundershock staff is a foundation establishment stage magic item. It still hasn't been completely refined, yet it forcefully withstood the full power attack of the Northern Aurora sword, which is also a foundation establishment stage magic item. Even though its vitality was injured, it actually wasn't directly destroyed. Its defensive power is indeed worthy of praise. As Lin Feng was thinking, the Thundershock staff in his hand suddenly started to tremble, as if there was some kind of force pulling it out of Lin Feng's control. It's Hui Ku. That monk is free. Lin Feng's heart moved. He raised his hand and drew a few lines in the air, casting the Heaven Cage sigil and sealing the Thundershock staff. Hui Ku is a foundation establishment stage cultivator, and the Thundershock staff is a foundation establishment stage magic item. Even if Lin Feng, who is at Qi disciple level 10, lays down the Heaven Cage sigil, he wouldn't be able to seal the Thundershock staff. But after all, the Thundershock staff still hasn't been successfully refined, and before it even ate one of Lin Feng's Northern Aurora mystic light. So even though it struggles, it can't break the Heaven Cage sigil. Once the Heaven Cage sigil came out, it immediately cut off the connection between Hui Ku and the Thundershock staff, making him unable to communicate with the Thundershock staff anymore, and unable to sense the specific location of Lin Feng and the magic item. No matter how furious the monk is, Lin Feng brought his two disciples and Mr. Vulture, who was beaten half to death by Xiao Budian, and went around this valley, continuing to chase after the Society of the Strong Gale and Zhu Yi from another direction. Lin Feng continuously studied the structure of the Thundershock staff along the way, and discovered that this magic item was refined using a kind of Buddhist magical power. Within the magic item, the traces left behind by Hui Ku's refinement are completely preserved. Then it's easy. Lin Feng smiled. Other people are unable to comprehend magical powers and spells from these kinds of remnant traces. Even fellow Buddhist cultivators are unable to do it. But for Lin Feng it couldn't be any easier. Opening the magical power analyzer in the system tools, Lin Feng only has to wait patiently. Analysis complete. A moment later, the sound of the system notification rang beside Lin Feng's ears, and the magical power analyzer also listed out the detailed information. Magical power name, little reincarnation technique type, spell effect, discern right from wrong, understand cause and effect, guide the attacks of others to deviate from the original path, thus achieving the goal of defense. Through the magical power analyzer, Lin Feng very quickly understood all of the principles and essence of this spell, and then grasped the spell. Lin Feng took out the snake blood that Xiao Budian and Xiao Yin gathered. After being nourished by the Thundershock staff for a long period of time, this giant python's blood was actually a light gold color. The blood was extremely viscous, but it didn't solidify and instead rippled with a faint radiance. After separating a portion of the snake blood, Lin Feng threw the Thundershock staff into the snake blood, and then started to use his own mana to circulate the Buddhist magical power little reincarnation technique, continuing Hui Ku's unfinished business, and refining this protective Buddhist weapon. The surface of the Thundershock staff continuously flickered with golden light, as if it was a living being, breathing in and out. Between breaths, it continuously absorbed the spirit energy contained within the snake blood. Hui Ku's refinement of this magic item was already at the final stage. In a few more days he would be able to complete it. But in the end, because he was greedy and hunted down Xiao Yan, in the end Lin Feng took advantage of it. Right now Lin Feng didn't care about the cost, and put in a lot of effort to refine it. In less than 2 days he successfully refined it. The completely refined Thundershock staff was completely golden, and flowed with a dazzling golden radiance. Bursts of sandalwood fragrance assailed the nostrils, and there was even the incessant sound of Buddhist chanting. Placed there, the entire magic item was wrapped in Buddhist light, and within the Buddhist light, there were even countless images flashing. Buddhas, arhats, samanis, flying apsaras, heavenly dragons, giant elephants, treasured trees. Countless images rose and fell. Even more because Hui Ku had already completed 99%. So even though the final step was kicked open by Lin Feng, this Qi disciple stage cultivator, this Thundershock staff is still a foundation establishment stage magic item. This is what Lin Feng is most satisfied with. Lin Feng finished refining the Thundershock staff, and threw it to Xiao Yan. This is what he promised. This kind of magic item can effectively raise his disciple's strength. Xiao Budian looked on impatiently and came up to shake Lin Feng's hand. Master, I also want a foundation establishment stage magic item. Lin Feng smiled and said, Don't you like that hammer? Xiao Budian grabbed the white bone hammer, scratching his head and smiling, saying, I do like it a lot, too bad it's broken. Master, help me fix it. Lin Feng nodded his head. I'll be free in a bit. Right now Master has some proper business to do. Saying this, he picked up the unconscious Mr. Vulture on the ground. The poor bald old man's head was already full of bumps from being beaten up by Xiao Budian. After being awakened by Lin Feng's lightning stimulation, his first reaction was already not to open his eyes, but to want to hug his head with his hands out of conditioned reflex. Unfortunately, Xiao Budian was already prepared. The beast tendon rope tied him up like a rice dumpling. After struggling for a long time, he still didn't receive the already customary hammer. Mr. Vulture stared blankly, almost being moved to tears. Every time the poor old man was woken up, he was knocked unconscious again in less than a second. The amount of time he was awake, after waking up this time, was actually even more than before added together. Lin Feng looked at this scene in amusement. Clearing his throat, he asked, How many people did the house of the Marquis of Xuanji send into the mountains to hunt down the Society of the Strong Gale? Chapter 40. How many people did the house of the Marquis of Xuanji send into the mountains to hunt down the Society of the Strong Gale? Mr. Vulture was dazed for a moment, then asked hoarsely, Who are you? He wanted to turn around and see who the other party was. But the moment he moved, he was firmly stepped on by someone. He could only continue to face the yellow soil. Lin Feng's voice faintly transmitted over. You don't have the right to ask questions. If you don't want to die, then obediently answer my questions. You're already quite old. It's not easy to reach the foundation establishment stage. Don't you want to continue living and enjoy life? Lin Feng smiled, saying, The Marquis of Xuanji isn't your father. You're only serving him. There's no need to risk your life, right? Mr. Vulture was silent for a moment, then said in a low voice, Including me, there are a total of 10 foundation establishment stage cultivators. over 100 Qi disciple stage cultivators, led by Mr. Huang San of the House of the Marquis. Lin Feng asked, "Mr. Huang San?" Mr. Vulture was a bit surprised. Mr. Huang San of the House of the Marquis is very famous. Why does Lin Feng look like he's never heard of him? But right now he's in Lin Feng's hands, so he doesn't dare to say anything, only introducing. Mr. Huang San is the third steward of the House of the Marquis. He's always in charge of the outside affairs of the house. After a pause he added, Mr. Huang San is a great cultivator of the golden elixir period. Lin Feng grinned. The Marquis of Xuanji Zhu Hongwu's ostentatiousness is really not small, a golden elixir period cultivator as a steward, and he's also only the third steward. There are still two even bigger ones above him. Logically speaking, this kind of formation should be able to take down that big monk Hui Ku. But the prerequisite is that they can't split up their strength and be defeated by Hui Ku one by one. Lin Feng looked at Mr. Vulture on the ground and nodded his head, leaving him with his life to send a message to that Mr. Huang San was indeed useful. A golden elixir period cultivator leading the group. Even if Hui Ku has the 24 Heaven Arhut formation, he still has to take it easy. Calling out to the little guy in the distance. The little guy carrying the white bone hammer ran over like a wisp of smoke. Lin Feng gave him a look, and the little guy immediately walked behind Mr. Vulture with a smile. Even though Mr. Vulture is lying on the ground and can't see the scene above his head, that familiar feeling of goosebumps and his scalp tingling once again welled up in his heart. No, the bald old man had no other thoughts. As long as he was not knocked unconscious again, he was willing to pay any price. But the development of events did not change according to his will. The little guy aimed at the back of his head and once again knocked Old Vulture unconscious. Lin Feng collected Old Vulture's storage pouch, stuffed the old man into a cave, then called out to Xiao Yan and Xiao Budian to leave. Mr. Vulture is a subordinate of the House of the Marquis of Xuanji. His training resources are supplied by the House of the Marquis and are incomparably abundant. Lin Feng opened his storage bag and was dazzled by the variety of medicinal pills and spiritual items. He couldn't help but sigh in his heart. This kind of business that doesn't cost anything really earns money quickly. There was also a Dao technique in the storage bag. It was called the Blue Ocean River technique. It was a water-type Dao technique. It could increase the density of the cultivator's true qi. Water in itself is something that wins through quantity. The thicker it is, the stronger the power. Cultivators that train in water-type Dao techniques usually have more vigorous and abundant mana than other cultivators of the same level. This Blue Ocean River technique is like this. It can increase the density of the cultivator's mana. When the Dao technique is completed, the cultivator's mana will be like a surging river, vigorous and majestic, its power unstoppable. Right now Lin Feng already trains in two kinds of Dao techniques, the Nine Heavens Thunder technique and the Art of Akala. The lightning and fire mana cultivated from these two Dao techniques are both extremely tyrannical and fierce, but the consumption rate is also very fast. Right now Lin Feng's main method of attack is the Foundation Establishment Stage magic item, Northern Aurora Sword. It consumes a lot of mana. If Lin Feng can successfully train in the Blue Ocean River technique, under the circumstances that his realm does not change, the total amount of mana will increase greatly. This will be even more convenient for him to control the Northern Aurora Sword. This water-type Dao technique, to Lin Feng, is undoubtedly a timely reign. Other people have to start from the beginning when they train in a Dao technique, but Lin Feng can easily train in it using the system's hidden attribute. Feeling the surging mana that is at least 30% more abundant than usual in the 10 acupoints that have already been opened, Lin Feng smiled in satisfaction. Lin Feng hurried on while operating the Blue Ocean River technique, very quickly catching up to the people of the Society of the Strong Gale. Rather than saying they caught up, it would be better to say that the people of the Society of the Strong Gale stopped where they were. The black-clothed man with a knife scar on his face was currently standing on the edge of a cliff with a gloomy expression. A group of cultivators of the Society of the Strong Gale were gathered around him. Zhu Yi was firmly watched by the two as he walked through the forest. His blue robe, which had been washed so many times it had turned white, had already been torn in several places. He looked abnormally disheveled, but his expression was still calm. A cultivator of the Society of the Strong Gale couldn't help but say, "Don't tell me that monk was killed by someone?" He usually brags and his eyes grow on top of his head. Now he's shown his true colors. The black-clothed man stroked the scar on his face, silently saying, "Don't underestimate him. Unless the other side is a cultivator of the golden elixir period, Huiku will be fine. That monk's cultivation is very high. If it wasn't for this, we wouldn't have thought of roping him in." The cultivator beside him asked, "Then we're just going to keep waiting here?" The black-clothed man sighed lightly. "I'm not waiting for Huiku. I'm waiting for the two brothers who were chasing after that fatty before. That old bastard Zhu Hongwu sent out pursuers so quickly. That means that fatty successfully escaped back to report. Right now I only hope that those two brothers are smart enough and find a way to escape on their own when things aren't looking good." The black-clothed man's eyebrows formed a knot. "But so many days have passed and we still haven't seen them meet up, I'm afraid." Sigh. The group of cultivators of the Society of the Strong Gale all fell into silence. The black-clothed man took a deep breath. "The pursuers are already getting closer and closer. We can't wait any longer." Finishing speaking, he took out a strangely shaped spirit stone from his chest and threw it into the air with a swing of his hand. Then his hands changed hand signs, making a few different hand signs in succession. Large amounts of spiritual energy began to surge according to a strange rhythm and tempo. Lin Feng has always been secretly observing from afar. Seeing the black-clothed man's movements, he immediately paid attention. The spirit stone flashed a few times in the air, and then suddenly disappeared. And on the precipitous mountain wall below the cliff, an area of light suddenly lit up. After the light disappeared, a cave entrance actually appeared on the originally plain and unremarkable stone wall. The moment the cave entrance appeared, Lin Feng sensed dense spiritual energy flowing out from within. This is definitely not a normal cave. It's more like the entrance to some kind of paradise. What the black-clothed man did just now was not to remove some kind of camouflage that covered the cave entrance, but rather to use the spirit stone as a key to open the passage to this cave. This is clearly a route of retreat that the Society of the Strong Gale had already grasped long ago. Right now they're in a tight encirclement, so they decisively used it. The black-clothed man took the lead and jumped down the cliff, his body sliding into the cave entrance on the mountain wall. The group of cultivators of the Society of the Strong Gale immediately brought along Zhu Yi and followed closely behind him in an orderly manner, entering the cave together. Lin Feng didn't dare to tarry. Bringing along his two disciples, he quickly rushed to the bottom of the cliff. Luckily, the cave entrance was still open and didn't close again after the group of people of the Society of the Strong Gale entered. The master and disciples entered the cave. Looking inside the cave, they could faintly make out that it was a tunnel. The tunnel went all the way down. Lin Feng calculated the distance. The tunnel actually went deep underground. Along the way there appeared many forks in the road, many tunnels leading in all directions. This cave is actually an underground palace with a complicated structure. Right now Lin Feng frowned, because he suddenly discovered that he actually couldn't sense Zhu Yi's location anymore. In the underground palace there is abundant spiritual energy, but there is also the existence of large amounts of foul energy, and it even blends together with the spiritual energy, appearing especially messy. In this kind of chaotic environment, Lin Feng is unable to sense the crystal he left on Zhu Yi. At the same time, the sound of the system notification suddenly rang out next to Lin Feng's ears. Chapter 41. Host has triggered a random side mission, Black Cloud Underground Palace. Lin Feng blinked out for a moment before reacting. He still hasn't completely completed the mission on hand, and this unlucky system actually issued a new mission. It can't be that it's another time limit, otherwise it'll be erased, right? Lin Feng fearfully opened the mission description. Random side mission, Black Cloud Underground Palace. Mission background. The underground palace was originally the cave of loose cultivator Taoist Master He Yin 100 years ago. When Taoist Master He Yin opened the cave back then, he accidentally opened up the void, causing the deepest part of the underground palace to be connected to the Nether Blood River. Taoist Master He Yin suffered a calamity and fell. Mission objective. Host obtain the lifebound magic tool Black Cloud Flag that Taoist Master He Yun lost in the depths of the cave. Mission time limit. 7 days. Mission is invalid if it is not completed within the time limit. Mission invalid? Lin Feng blinked his eyes and let out a long sigh of relief. Even though the system is very deceptive, it has always clearly tricked people and wouldn't play tricks in the dark. Since it says that there's no punishment if it's not completed within the time limit, then there shouldn't be any danger. Looking at it now, only the main mission has a death penalty. Side missions are much better. There'll probably be rewards if it's completed, but it doesn't matter if it's not completed. Lin Feng's mind started to turn. Taoist Master He Yun, Taoist Master. Then he's a golden elixir period cultivator? Heaven Primal World has some established rules. Golden elixir period cultivators can be called Taoist Masters. Yuanying stage cultivators can be called true monarchs or ancestors. These titles are universally recognized and can't be easily mistaken. A foundation establishment stage cultivator, daring to call himself Taoist Master. That's not just a matter of being laughed at. It's very likely that trouble will come knocking on their door. Only the mission's background mentioned that the deepest part of this Black Cloud underground palace is actually connected to the Nether Blood River, instantly giving Lin Feng a headache. Legend has it that within the Netherworld's Yellow Springs, there's a Nether Blood River. It's endless and boundless. It's completely filled with filthy blood. It's called Blood River True Water. The Blood River True Water was one of the 6 great true waters of the heaven and earth. It was also an extremely evil and filthy water. It was the most filthy thing in the world. No matter how powerful a technique was, or how mystical a magical item was, as long as it came into contact with a little bit of it, it would immediately be polluted and lose its magical power. The previous owner of this cave, Taoist Master He Yun, had died in this blood river. This danger made Lin Feng rather hesitant. Most likely that group of people from the Society of the Strong Gale are only active in the upper levels of the underground palace. They still don't know that there is great danger here. Let's take it one step at a time. We're going down to find Zhui anyway. At most, we won't go to the deepest part. Lin Feng thought for a moment and made up his mind. He then said to his 2 disciples beside him, "This underground palace is not ordinary. Follow me closely and don't run around." Xiao Yin and Xiao Budian could both see the solemn expression on their master's face. Thinking that even their master, who was omnipotent, was so serious, the 2 of them hurriedly nodded. Lin Feng waved his sleeves. "Let's go." In the depths of the underground palace, the cultivators of the Society of the Strong Gale were holding Zhui hostage, hurriedly moving forward. They've already walked out of the tunnel. What appeared in front of them was a giant deep pit. The group of people walked around the edge of the deep pit. The narrow path only allowed one person to move sideways. It looked incredibly dangerous. The black-clothed man said as he walked, "Pay attention to your feet. If you fall down from here you won't even be able to find your bones." In the group, Zhuyi's eyes flashed, lowering his head. The black-clothed man seemed to know what he was thinking, coldly saying, "Don't get any weird ideas. Everyone here can crush you like squashing a mosquito." Zhui was silent. A cultivator of the Society of the Strong Gale asked, "Boss, isn't this our secret base in the heart of the Zhou dynasty?" The black-clothed man said, "This is a cave left behind by a senior expert. It's been abandoned for a long time. Spiritual energy and foul air coexist, so no one has ever found it. The society also accidentally discovered it not long ago. After investigating, we found out that this place isn't conducive to cultivation, but we can set up a teleportation formation. The location isn't far from the capital of Zhoudog Tianjing, so we used this place as a route of retreat, making it convenient for us to evacuate after our operation." Speaking up to here, the black-clothed man's expression was a bit ugly, touching the scar on his face with lingering fear. But there are still many things in this underground palace that we haven't figured out yet, especially the depths of the underground palace. None of the brothers that went in to investigate returned. They all disappeared. Speaking up to here, all of the cultivators of the Society of the Strong Gale subconsciously looked at the pitch-black pit under their feet. That place is like a bottomless abyss, and also like a monster opening its giant mouth, swallowing all who dare to pry. Zhu Yi also felt his scalp tingle from hearing this. Looking at the abyss under his feet, he was in a daze. Everyone was no longer in the mood to talk. In the darkness, only the fluorite in everyone's hands emitted a faint light, continuously swaying. The group of people bypassed the giant pit. The entrance to another tunnel appeared in front of them. Zhu Yi observed carefully for a bit. It's different from the tunnels they passed through before. This tunnel is clearly newly excavated. Passing through this tunnel is where the teleportation formation, set up by the Society of the Strong Gale, is. It can teleport between two fixed locations, but it can only be used once. Unless it's absolutely necessary, the black-clothed man really doesn't want to use it. Especially after being exposed this time. This cave will definitely be discovered by the Zhou dynasty. Even if they want to set up a new formation, it would be impossible. The black-clothed man shook his head. We'll wait here a bit longer. If Hui Ku and the others still can't catch up, then we'll have to leave first. It doesn't matter if other people can't catch up. It's fine as long as we catch up. The black-clothed man's heart sank. They still caught up. Wave after wave of powerful mana fluctuations surged in the surroundings. Right now the hearts of the people of the Society of the Strong Gale sunk to the bottom. 7. A whole 7 foundation establishment stage cultivators surrounded them. In their group, other than the black-clothed man in the lead, who is a foundation establishment stage cultivator, the others are all Qi disciple stage. But the other side has a whole 7 foundation establishment stage cultivators. They only need half to take care of all of them. The middle-aged man in purple luxurious clothing at the front said with a smile. All of you stay behind. Raising both his hands together, 9 rings of light flew out from his palms, heading towards the heads of the cultivators of the Society of the Strong Gale. The rings of light seemed to fly very slowly, but when they reached the top they suddenly stopped. Each ring of light released a beam of white light, shining on the opponent's body. A cultivator of the Society of the Strong Gale let out a loud shout, casting a water spell to block, and laying down a water screen in front of him. But it didn't have the slightest effect. The beam of light shone on his body unimpeded. When the beam of white light shone on his body there was no change at all. That cultivator of the Society of the Strong Gale was dazed, not understanding why a foundation establishment stage cultivator would do such a meaningless thing. But the next moment the beam of light suddenly changed from white to red. Being shown by the red beam of light like this, the eyes of the cultivator of the Society of the Strong Gale instantly went blank. His entire body completely froze. As if he was hit by a paralysis spell. He couldn't even move a finger. At this time the rings of light in midair followed the red beam of light and fell down, wrapping around the opponent's neck. Then directly bringing that cultivator of the Society of the Strong Gale flying up. His body uncontrollably flying towards the middle-aged man in purple luxurious clothing, who shot out the rings of light. The 9 rings of light succeeded one by one, actually capturing 9 cultivators of the Society of the Strong Gale alive in an instant. Let alone risking their lives. These cultivators of the Society of the Strong Gale can't even commit suicide. After capturing these 9 people, the middle-aged man in purple luxurious clothing loosened the rings of light on their necks. But these people were still unable to move. The middle-aged man in purple luxurious clothing did the same thing. Waving his hand the 9 rings of light once again flew towards the remaining cultivators of the Society of the Strong Gale. The black-clothed man shouted angrily, casting a small drum. The small drum rang out. The ear-piercing sound made the 7 foundation establishment stage cultivators on the other side unconsciously frown. The sound of the drum brought up streams of invisible ripples, blocking the 9 rings of light in midair, and making them unable to fly over. The brows of the middle-aged man in purple luxurious clothing furrowed slightly, saying to the others, "Friends of the 5 Elements sect, please help out." Of the remaining 6 people, 5 of them are wearing clothing of the same style. It's just that the colors are all different. They are respectively white, azure, black, red and yellow, symbolizing the 5 elements of metal, wood, water, fire and earth. The yellow-clothed old man in the lead coughed dryly. "No need to be polite, fellow cultivator. It's within our duties." In an instant, strong mana fluctuations surged from the bodies of the 5 people, filling the entire space. The black-clothed man's expression changed slightly, shouting, "Our Society of the Strong Gale has operated here for many years. How can we allow you to be presumptuous?" Finishing speaking, he crushed a jade tablet. The originally disorderly spiritual energy in the underground palace suddenly became orderly. A formation flashing with a blinding spiritual light appeared in midair. The sound of wind came from within the formation. The next moment, one after another enormous tornadoes rushed out of the formation. Like one angry dragon, after another they roared and charged towards the 7 cultivators of the House of the Marquis. A dozen or so tornadoes rampaged about, interweaving together, and turning the cave into a world of storms. Everything that blocked in front of the tornadoes were all torn to shreds. On the stone walls one deep ravine after another was left. For a moment the wind howled, the mountains collapsed and the earth cracked. It was like the end of the world. In front of this formation, it's enough to tear apart Foundation Establishment stage cultivators. Only those with the strength of the Golden Elixir period can protect themselves. The 5 cultivators of the 5 Elements sect were not nervous. They looked at each other. Among them the yellow-clothed old man said with a smile, "We'll let you see our methods." The 5 of them cast a spell together, shouting in unison, "Reverse 5 Elements Demon Sealing Formation." Colorless divine light shot up into the sky, instantly illuminating the entire cave. Even the pitch-black abyss below became bright. The 5 of them come from the same sect. They each cultivate a type of Dao technique. The 5 of them joining hands to lay down this reverse 5 elements demon sealing formation is enough to suppress all opponents under the Golden Elixir period. The violent wind was enveloped by the 5-colored divine light. It was instantly frozen in midair, unable to continue wreaking havoc. Right now the black-clothed man's back was drenched in sweat. On one hand he had to control the magic tool drum, to face the purple-clothed middle-aged man's circle of light. On the other hand he had to activate the formation, to resist the opponent's reverse 5 elements demon sealing formation. Being attacked from 2 sides, even if he has the geographical advantage, he's still being pressed into a disadvantage. Just as he was panicking, a voice rang out unhurriedly. "Why are you so slow? 7 against 1 and it still takes so long?" The next moment a figure appeared in midair. Just like that he stood still in midair above the abyss, looking down at everyone. Chapter 42. Even though he is currently in a life-and-death battle with the opponent, right now the black-clothed man's attention is no longer on the 7 Foundation Establishment stage cultivators. It's not that he doesn't care, but right now all of his attention is placed on the person in midair. The black-clothed man completely ignored the 7 Foundation Establishment stage cultivators. It's not that he doesn't care, but right now all of his attention is placed on the person in midair. The opponent did not reveal even the slightest bit of mana fluctuations, but it's precisely because of this that he's scary. One has to know that he's completely relying on his own mana to float in midair. Below his feet is a bottomless abyss. That's a middle-aged man, fair and fat. He has a friendly smile. Even fatter than Fatty Zhu who came looking for trouble with Zhu Yi before. After this person appeared the 7 Foundation Establishment stage cultivators of the House of the Marquis no longer attacked. The black-clothed man is still in a state of shock. He also doesn't dare to act rashly. The fair and fat middle-aged man smiled as he looked at Zhu Yi in the crowd, saying warmly, "Young Master Yi, I've come to take you home." Facing this middle-aged man who came to save him, Zhu Yi's expression was even uglier than the black-clothed man and the others. Clenching his fists he didn't say a word. The black-clothed man took a deep breath. "May I ask your name?" The middle-aged man faintly smiled. "You might have heard of my name before. My surname is Huang. Many people are used to calling me Huang-san." Fatty Huang-san still had a friendly smile, but the faces of the cultivators of the Society of the Strong Gale were like dead ashes. Huang-san, the 3rd steward under the Marquis of Xuanji Zhu Honggu, a close confidant who specializes in dealing with some private matters for the Marquis of Xuanji. He's vicious and merciless, his reputation is outstanding, but he keeps a low profile. Very few people have seen his true face. They didn't expect him to be a fair and fat middle-aged man. Right now the black-clothed man's entire body felt like it fell into an icy cavern, because he knows that this fatty in front of him, who seems like a friendly businessman, is a solid golden elixir period cultivator. But the hatred of the destruction of his country, the hatred of the extermination of his family, his dignity, his hatred, his fury, all of them make it impossible for him to yield to the person in front of him. The faces of all the cultivators of the Society of the Strong Gale revealed a determined expression. Even if their bodies were slightly trembling out of instinctive fear, they still stood shoulder to shoulder, facing the powerful enemy in front of them, who can destroy them with just one finger. Huang San leisurely sighed. Snowgale country. No, it is now my Great Zhou's Snowgale County. If it were up to me, we should kill off all the natives, and then immigrate from within the Great Zhou. That way, there won't be any trouble. The black-clothed man flew into a rage, manipulating the hurricane formation. Immediately dozens of tornadoes whistled out, attacking Huang San from different angles and directions. Huang San laughed, his eyes narrowing so much that they almost couldn't be seen. You guys still don't understand the situation. Before he finished speaking, Huang San raised his hand slightly, and a gust of cold wind, that seemed to come from the depths of hell, instantly swept through the entire underground palace. Almost in an instant, the underground palace turned into a world of ice and snow. The stone walls were covered with a layer of crystal clear ice. When the fluorite shone on it, it actually flickered with a dazzling radiance. The entire space became bright. In the blink of an eye, the underground palace had completely turned into an ice cave. The raging tornadoes were forcibly frozen in the pillars of ice, still maintaining their previous shape. But looking at it now, they looked incredibly laughable. This was only the beginning. What was frozen by the ice was far from just the tornadoes. Starting from the black-clothed man, a layer of snow-white frost formed out of thin air on the surface of the bodies of all the cultivators of the Society of the Strong Gale. The frost became thicker and thicker. In the end, it looked like they were going to be frozen into ice sculptures. And Zhu Yi, who was standing in the middle of them, was safe and sound. Not only was there no invasion of ice and snow, Zhu Yi didn't even feel any change in the surrounding temperature. The black-clothed man's expression changed drastically. Clenching his teeth, he raised his hand and threw out a talisman. In midair, Huang San's gaze flashed. Golden elixir talisman? The talisman that the black-clothed man threw out was impressively a golden elixir talisman, made by a golden elixir period cultivator. Its power was equivalent to a full-powered attack of a golden elixir period cultivator. The talisman exploded in midair, transforming into rolling lightning. Countless snakes of lightning shot out in all directions, instantly tearing apart Huang San's mana blockade. Countless cracks appeared on the surface of the ice, densely packed like a spider web. The blinding lightning reflected on the ice surface, illuminating the underground palace as if it was daytime. Countless pieces of ice shattered, falling down into the abyss below like rain. In the midst of the earth quaking and the mountains shaking, the entire underground palace was like the end of the world had arrived. Even the expressions of the 6 foundation establishment stage cultivators, who came with Huang San, changed, doing their best to stabilize their bodies. But they could still be considered calm. Their gazes all turned towards the sky, the most direct target of the lightning's attack, Huang San. Huang San's expression was as usual. He even had the leisure to smile. A final struggle before death. Raising his 2 palms, at this moment a vigorous mana was revealed for the first time. The vast space seemed to have solidified. At this moment the raging cold air actually froze the raging lightning. Within the snow-white cold air, the wildly dancing lightning was like a bound flying dragon. But under the confinement of the cold air, its movements became more and more rigid. The previously earthquake-like cavern also stabilized at this moment. The tragic sight of the world collapsing was calmed down by Huang San's laughter. Huang San smiled. Both in the golden elixir period, there are still differences in cultivation level. The hearts of the cultivators of the Society of the Strong Gale were even colder. A talisman that possesses the power of a golden elixir period cultivator's attack. Huang San doesn't take it seriously at all. The black-clothed man glanced at Zhu Yi, not daring to have the slightest hesitation, grabbing him and directly throwing him into the abyss below his feet, then charging towards the teleportation formation in the depths of the tunnel, without even turning his head back. Huang San smiled, splitting out a strand of mana to catch the falling Zhu Yi, but a thick foul air suddenly surged up from the bottom of the abyss. This foul air is like a slumbering monster, suddenly awakened by the changes from before. When Huang San's mana came into contact with this foul air, he actually instantly lost control, and was directly swallowed up by the foul air. Huang San's eyes that had already narrowed into a slit suddenly widened. His fat body disappeared from where he stood, and in the next moment, he was already in front of Zhu Yi, personally catching Zhu Yi, and at the same time also coming into contact with that foul air. Cold air curled around Huang San's body. A lot of it was corroded by the foul air, but he still used his powerful mana to suppress the foul air. But in this moment of distraction, the black-clothed man and the cultivators of the Society of the Strong Gale already took the opportunity to escape into the tunnel and open the teleportation formation. The smile on Huang San's face disappeared. He raised his hand and formed a spell sign. The cold air instantly rose sharply, wanting to freeze even the teleportation formation. The black-clothed man can also be considered to be very decisive. In order to buy time, he just threw away Zhu Yi, that he took so much effort to catch. It's just that Huang San's cultivation level is too high. Even if he first blocks the golden elixir talisman, and then saves Zhu Yi, in the end he still has the ability to intercept and kill them. Unfortunately, at the crucial moment, that ball of strange foul air that rose up from the abyss helped the black-clothed man. With this delay, Huang San was still a step too slow in the end. The teleportation formation has already been activated. Under the influence of Huang San's mana, the space split open by the formation is crooked and twisted, even tearing the body of a cultivator of the Society of the Strong Gale in half. But in the end it still broke open a path in space, allowing the black-clothed man and the others to escape. Huang San chuckled, saying, "A few rats, they're pretty slippery. But after being disturbed by your master, San, there's no way you guys can teleport to the predetermined location. You can count yourselves lucky that you didn't die in the space vortex." Zhu Yi, who was caught in his hand, didn't say a word. Huang San looked at Zhu Yi, smiling so much that his eyes couldn't be seen. These thieves are pretty smart, finding such a place with mixed spiritual energy. Normal people wouldn't be able to search at all if they came in. But people who come from small places are really ignorant. They didn't know that cultivators of the golden elixir period can still locate their targets in this kind of environment. The heavens have mercy and didn't let young mastery fall into the hands of those thieves. Otherwise the Marquis's face would have been completely thrown away by you. The other 7 Foundation Establishment stage cultivators all looked at Zhu Yi with a playful smile on their faces, like a cat playing with a mouse. Zhu Yi felt bitter in his heart. With just a glance he recognized these cultivators. They're all cultivators who rely on the Marquis of Xuanji's main wife, Madame Xiao. Even Huang San in front of him. Even though he's the Marquis of Xuanji's trusted aide, he's also Madame Xiao's trusted aide. He often comes out to help Madame Xiao deal with some shady matters. For example, right now Zhu Yi believes that he doesn't mind getting rid of him along the way, and then pushing the blame onto that group of people from the Society of the Strong Gale. This is truly leaving the tiger's den, and then entering the wolf's den. Sure enough, Huang San said with a smile. No matter what the living young master, he can't fall into the hands of thieves, and then be used by them to threaten the Marquis. Of course it's impossible for the Marquis to compromise with a group of thieves. But if this matter gets out, then the Marquis's face will be completely thrown away. However, if young Master Yi doesn't want to make things difficult for his father the Marquis for the sake of filial piety, and thus commits suicide and vows to die unyieldingly, if this matter gets out it would instead be a beautiful story, right? While speaking, Huang San's pair of small eyes stared closely at Zhu Yi, his entire body emitting a dangerous aura. Zhu Yi instantly felt his heart being gripped tightly by an invisible large hand, rubbing non-stop. All the blood in his body gathered in his heart, wanting to explode his heart. Zhu Yi's pupils gradually dilated, his eyes starting to lose their light. Am I going to die here? Chapter 43. The aura of life on Zhu Yi's body was currently slowly fading away. Huang San's chubby face was still cheerful, a pair of small eyes emitting a savage light. He was currently leisurely torturing Zhu Yi when his expression suddenly changed slightly, looking behind him. At the exit of a tunnel stood a youth wearing clothes as white as snow, and a green bamboo hat. The youth raised his head, revealing the face under the bamboo hat. His appearance could be considered decent, his skin extremely white, and there were a few white spots on his face. What attracted the most attention around this person was the long sword at his waist. The scabbard was engraved with a simple and heavy engraving of mountains and rivers. Apart from Zhu Yi, who was already gradually losing consciousness, the pupils of everyone present constricted when they saw the long sword. Someone from the Mount Shu sword sect? Even though he was raising his head to look at Huang San, who was in midair, his expression was completely condescending. He grinned. "Fatty, have you seen a young Taoist dressed in white robes, with a feather robe and a star crown, with a child by his side?" The youth's tone was frivolous and rude. Even though Huang San still had a smile on his face, his gaze had already turned cold. In front of the Marquis of Xuanji, Huang San is a servant, but other people definitely don't dare to look down on him, as the Marquis of Xuanji's trusted aide. Not to mention the house of the Marquis of Xuanji. Even within the borders of the Great Zhou, the vast majority of people have to respectfully call him Mr. Huang San. When facing him, a few foundation establishment stage cultivators revealed even more dissatisfaction. A foundation establishment stage cultivator, who didn't make a move before, thought that it would be unjustifiable if he didn't perform well. So he wanted to curry favor with Huang San. So he reprimanded. "This is Mr. Huang San of the House of the Marquis of Xuanji. Behave yourself or else even the Mount Shu sword sect won't be able to protect you." Hearing this, the bamboo hat youth only silently laughed, not even turning his gaze over. But the long sword at his waist suddenly unsheathed, turning into a flash of cold light, shooting towards that foundation establishment stage cultivator. Huang San's expression darkened. Impudent. Cold air that filled the air condensed, wanting to freeze the bamboo hat youth's sword. But when the bamboo hat youth's sword light was about to come into contact with Huang San's cold air, it suddenly disappeared. Huang San was slightly stunned. The next moment his expression changed abruptly, shouting, "Careful!" Before the foundation establishment cultivator could react, the sword light that had disappeared suddenly reappeared in front of him out of thin air. Right in front of him, the sword light pierced through his head and flew back into the bamboo-hatted young man's scabbard. At this moment, the foundational cultivator finally reacted. He opened his mouth to speak, but no sound came out. A line of blood slowly appeared between his eyebrows. In the next moment, it exploded and blood splattered in the air. "How dare you!" Huang San's face was ashen as he flung his arm and threw Zhu Yi to one of his subordinates. Without the suppression of his magic power, Zhu Yi finally regained his senses and spat out a mouthful of blood. His face was deathly pale, as if he had been seriously ill. But right now Huang San already couldn't care about him. His fat face was full of frost. Cutting through space, Shushan Xiao's sword indeed lives up to its name. But you're showing off in the wrong place. This is the Zhou dynasty, and the people you killed are people from the house of the Marquis of Xuanji. The bamboo-hatted young man cracked his mouth into a smile. "I'm asking you, have you seen a young Taoist with a child, wearing a white robe and a crown of stars?" Huang San laughed from extreme anger. The Shushan sword sect is really used to being arrogant, even daring to kill people from the house of the Marquis of Xuanji. Don't even think about leaving the Zhou dynasty alive. The bamboo-hatted young man smiled, saying, "Looks like you don't plan on answering my question. Then there's no point in keeping you alive." Finishing speaking, the sword light once again left the scabbard, freezing the world, 10,000 miles flying frost. Huang San laughed angrily, his hands forming a seal together. Instantly, wind and snow surged in the entire underground palace. Countless cold air condensed together, and the air became a vast expanse of whiteness. As for the remaining foundation establishment cultivators and Zhu Yi, Even though Huang San's target wasn't them, just the aftermath of his attack was enough to freeze them stiff. Not only were their bodies frozen, even their thoughts slowed down, their brains unable to move. This is a sign that even their souls are about to freeze. In order to defend against the opponent's flying sword that can flash through the air, Huang San pushed his mana to the limit, surrounding his body with cold air. No matter where the flying sword appears from, he can defend against it. Shushan Xiao's swords are admittedly strange and unfathomable, but their swords are unconventional. Their direct killing power is not enough. It's naturally easy for a golden elixir sword cultivator to kill Foundation Establishment cultivators. But if he wants to deal with me, then he has the wrong idea. While Huang San was thinking, the bamboo-hatted young man's voice suddenly came from within the cold air. Zhou Dynasty. The Marquis of Xuanji? Indeed very strong, but the problem is that you're very weak, making me unable to leave the Zhou Dynasty alive. Zhu Hongwu can say these words, but you can't. Not to mention, even if it's Zhu Hongwu, I will surpass him one day. The cold air within the underground palace suddenly began to fluctuate violently. An incomparably domineering ice sword light broke through the encirclement of the cold air, chopping straight towards Huang San. This sword light was dazzling, flashing with a cold light. Even the light it emitted was an unstoppable and domineering sword light. This sword was like tens of thousands of sword lights, merging together, 10,000 swords as one, sweeping through everything in its path. Different from the Xiaozi sword that can move through the air, this sword did not have any fancy changes, only reaching the extreme strength. Huang San turned pale with fright. It's not the Xiaozi sword, but the fiercest and most domineering of the 6 meridian swords of Shushan, the Xiaoshang sword? He actually grasps 2 kinds of swords at the same time. In a panic, Huang San condensed his mana, forming a profound ice shield in front of him. This was Huang San's strongest defensive method. He didn't even use it against the golden elixir talisman before. But now he used it without hesitation. But it was all in vain. Facing the bamboo-hatted young man's heaven-shattering sword, the cold mist that filled the air broke. The profound ice shield still broke. Seeing the sword light in front of him, Huang San roared unwillingly. 10,000 years of ice unshakable. A layer of ice and snow appeared on the surface of Huang San's body. His entire body seemed to be frozen into a block of ice. Like 10,000 years of ice, hard, stubborn, indestructible. At the same time, it was crystal clear, incomparably ancient, heavy. But it was still useless. Under Huang San's terrified gaze, the sword light completely ignored his defense. Like a knife cutting through tofu, piercing through his body, and then exploding within his body. Instantly, over 10,000 sword lights shot out of Huang San's body. Huang San's fat body was like a balloon that was blown up, exploding in the air with a bang, turning into a bloody mist that filled the air. The sword light that exploded out continued on without stopping, directly riddling the surrounding ice and stone walls with holes, like a beehive. Zhu Yi stared blankly at the bamboo-hatted young man who sheathed his sword. The Foundation Establishment stage cultivator of the House of the Marquis of Xuanji, beside him, was also dumbstruck. One sword. It was only one sword, and this bamboo-hatted young man killed Huang San, who was also in the golden elixir period. Huang San still had a lot of methods that he didn't use. He didn't even have the chance to self-destruct the golden elixir before being killed by his opponent. Zhu Yi suddenly had the urge to laugh. Huang San's sentence, cultivators of the same golden elixir period still have differences in cultivation, was still ringing in his ears, and now he himself became the best annotation of this sentence. Wait a minute. The young Taoist wearing a white robe and a crown of feathers and stars is extremely similar to the person I met in the temple that day. Could it be? Zhu Yi's heart suddenly moved, lowering his head and not saying anything. I wonder who is stronger between him and this Shushan sword cultivator? The bamboo-hatted young man looked at them, grinning. Remember my name, Lu Yang. I will be the person who kills Zhu Hongwu. Looking at the dumbstruck crowd, Lu Yang pressed down on his bamboo hat, turning around and leaving. Boring, too boring. I'd better continue looking for that young Taoist who humiliated the Blaze Sword sect. He licked his lips, chuckling. This person should be in this underground palace. I hope he can give me a bit more fun. Right now Lin Feng's mood was terrible to the extreme. Rumble, 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 rumble. In front of him a blood-red river roared and surged. It was dark and gloomy, emitting a nauseating stench that assaulted the nose. Just smelling this stench made Lin Feng feel that it was difficult and obscure to circulate his mana. Earlier a strong mana impact suddenly exploded in the underground palace. As a result it affected the spatial distortion. The Lin Feng master-disciple trio, who were walking halfway, were swept into a spatial crack, actually directly transported to the depths of the underground palace. Luckily the three of them did not get separated. But Lin Feng never would have thought that his group would actually be transported to the side of the underground Nether Blood River. Lin Feng looked at the extremely evil and filthy water of this world, wanting to cry but having no tears. On the surface he still had to put on a confident appearance in front of his two disciples, methodically introducing this true blood river water to them, telling them to stay away from this extremely filthy thing. Hearing the power of this Nether Blood River, Xiao Yan and Xiao Budian's faces both turned deathly white, hurriedly nodding their heads, closely following behind Lin Feng, avoiding the blood river like the plague. Lin Feng pondered as he walked. Even though that magic item Black Cloud Flag is good, it's not important. It's my fortune to get it, my fate to lose it. On the contrary, Zhu Yi, after spending so much effort, I must get this disciple. Just as he was thinking, Xiao Budian at the side suddenly tugged on Lin Feng's sleeves. Master, look over there. Lin Feng woke up and looked in the direction of Xiao Budian's finger, only to see a gray-clothed, short-haired burly man covered in blood, sitting on the side of the Nether Blood River, in a sorry state meditating. It was monk Hui Ku from before. Hui Ku had a pained and depressed expression. A faint golden Buddhist light flickered around his body. On the surface of the Buddhist light, cyan flames and red blood stains were currently entangled together. Lin Feng understood in his heart. This monk somehow came into contact with the true blood river water. Right now he's using Buddhist light to protect his body, then using cyan flames to expel the tainted blood. Looking at this scene, a warm and genial smile like the spring sun appeared on Lin Feng's face out of habit. Chapter 44. Looking at Hui Ku, who was working hard to expel the tainted blood, the smile on Lin Feng's face was as bright as the sun. Beating a dog when it's down will always make people happy. His disciple clearly had the same thoughts as him. Seeing this scene, Xiao Yan rubbed his palms together. This damn Baldy also has such a day. Lin Feng said. Little Yan, give your Thundershock staff to Master too. Xiao Yan took out the Thundershock staff and handed it over. Lin Feng grabbed the Thundershock staff with one hand and took out the golden paper that recorded the Ksitigarbha Sutra with the other, silently feeling the mana fluctuations that flowed out from the two items from time to time. When he was refining the Thundershock staff before, he already felt the golden paper move strangely, but didn't pay too much attention. Now after careful observation, Lin Feng could confirm that there was a faint resonance between the two items. Lin Feng thought for a bit, and already had an idea in his heart. Calling over his two disciples, the Thundershock staff was still given to Xiao Yan, and the golden paper was given to Xiao Budian. Today I'll be training you guys. In a bit, Master will only hold the line for you guys, and won't easily make a move. Lin Feng said nonchalantly. Xiao Yan and Xiao Budian looked at each other, and swallowed their saliva at the same time. Xiao Yan hesitated and said, Master, you can't be telling the two of us to deal with that damn Baldy, right? Even though he's a drowning dog right now, he's still a foundation establishment stage cultivator. Forget about these, the key is that magic item of his. Even 100 of me won't be enough. Xiao Budian's eyes turned and looked at the golden paper in his hands. Master, you have a way, right? Lin Feng was slightly lacking in confidence. A plan is after all only a plan, and it's a plan built on his speculations. He doesn't dare to guarantee success. But on the surface, Lin Feng still had an appearance of having everything under control. He even slanted his eyes at Xiao Yan. Learn more from your junior brother. Would Master let you guys do something I'm not sure of? Xiao Yan pursed his lips and said nothing. Lin Feng smiled and said, "You don't need to worry about that monk. The test I'm giving you is to break his 24 heaven Arhat formation. The thing I'm giving you is the item to break the formation. Later, you just need to follow my instructions. Breaking the formation will be as easy as lifting a finger." The two disciples became spirited, rubbing their palms together as they looked at Hui Ku in the distance. They had been bullied by Hui Ku in Tianjing City Market. If the patrolling soldiers hadn't arrived, they would have already been caught by Hui Ku. Especially Xiao Yan felt a wave of lingering fear. This big monk. He could even make a move on the skeletal remains of the elders of the sect. At that time, in order to force out the art of Akala. Who knows how he would deal with him? Earlier, when he was in an intense battle, he did not forget to release a snake to capture him. If this person did not die, Xiao Yan would not be able to rest easy. Lin Feng calculated a bit more in his heart. After planning everything properly, he brought Xiao Yan and Xiao Budian out. Hui Ku was currently in unbearable pain from being tortured by the tainted blood. He could also be considered unlucky. He managed to make it to the underground palace with great difficulty. But not long after he entered, he ran into the teleportation of the people of the Society of the Strong Gale. Huang San intervened, and in the end messed up the space, causing the space within the entire underground palace to become chaotic. Hui Ku was directly sent above the Nether Blood River by the teleportation space, falling straight towards the surging tainted blood water. The Great Thunder Monastery was one of the 3 great sacred lands of Tianyuan in the past. Even though it has been destroyed now, the disciples that came from within are all knowledgeable. Hui Ku recognized the Nether Blood River at the first moment, and complained endlessly in his heart, not daring to release the Saraira. Don't look at how these Saraira were all refined from the skeletal remains of the great Buddhist powers of the past. Once they come into contact with tainted blood, they will immediately lose all of their spiritual energy and become useless. Only after spending a tremendous amount of effort did Hui Ku not directly fall into the blood river. But his body was also stained with quite a bit of blood water. A large half of his Buddhist mana was instantly tainted. He could only bitterly hold on, while using Buddhist light to protect his body to prevent the tainted blood from continuing to stain his body. He also hurriedly used the Buddhist fire cultivated from the art of Akala to burn and clean up the tainted blood. But the progress was extremely slow. Hui Ku was irritated in his heart. If it was the complete version of the art of Akala, and I cultivated the true fury of the Akala, I would definitely be able to deal with this tainted blood. Even though the fury of the Akala is not one of the 7 great true fires, the blood river here is also nothing more than a small tributary of the Nether Blood Sea. It is not the purest blood river true water. Buddha, O Buddha! Disciple wholeheartedly pursues Buddha. Why would I encounter such a disaster? Could it be that Buddha also blames disciple for sacrificing the Saraira of an elder? Hui Ku roared in his heart. That won't happen. This poor monk is also doing this for the sake of bringing glory to our Buddhist sect. Even if those elders aren't willing to forgive me, Buddha will definitely understand me. Thinking of the thundershock staff he lost, and the spirit python he painstakingly raised for many years that was killed in the end, Hui Ku became even more furious, swearing in his heart that he would capture Xiao Yan, and even more so crush the bones of the person who killed his spirit pet and stole his magic item. Hui Ku was sulking when suddenly a young Taoist wearing a white robe with wide sleeves, feathered clothes, and a star crown appeared in front of him. Following that, Hui Ku saw Xiao Yan behind that young Taoist. Lin Feng looked at Hui Ku, who was angrily glaring at him, and said indifferently, "What are you glaring at, big monk? That day you made things difficult for my disciple. You were destined to suffer today's disaster." Hui Ku snorted. "You are this brat's master. His art of Akala was taught by you? This is my Great Thunder Monastery's secret Tao technique. Where did you learn it? Quickly return it to me. Otherwise don't blame this poor monk for being impolite." Lin Feng slowly shook his head. "You monk are indeed rude and unreasonable. I should teach you a lesson today." Hui Ku's expression was gloomy, because he discovered that he couldn't see through Lin Feng's cultivation at all. According to Hui Ku's knowledge, this means that Lin Feng's cultivation is even higher than his. Thinking up to here, Huiku didn't dare to be careless, shouting lowly. Taoist, this poor monk will help you right now. He used his trump card right off the bat, throwing out 24 sariras which shone brightly in this dark underground. 24 Heaven Arhat formation open. Where Buddhist light flashed, Buddhist chanting rang out incessantly. The smell of sandalwood assailed the nostrils. Beside the Nether Blood River, a Buddhist light covered an area of almost 300 meters, enveloping Lin Feng, his 2 disciples and Huiku within. Within the Buddhist light, there were layers upon layers of human figures. 24 golden arhats over 30 meters tall slowly walked out, appearing in the line of sight of Lin Feng and the 2 others. The vigorous mana of 24 foundation establishment stage cultivators was truly as deep as the ocean, pressuring over together. Lin Feng practically had the urge to raise his hands and surrender. Lin Feng tried his best to compose himself, still looking at his 2 disciples beside him with a calm expression. It's up to you guys. Xiao Yan and Xiao Budian nodded at the same time, charging into the Buddhist light. With the protection of the Thundershock staff and golden paper, the mental pressure brought by the golden arhats had very little effect on them. Seeing this scene, Lin Feng knew that he had most likely guessed correctly. Between Buddhist Tao techniques and magic tools, even if they are different types, there will still be a lot of resonance. To a certain extent, they can mutually cancel each other out. Especially those 24 golden arhats. They actually don't have their own thoughts, and only act according to their instincts under Huiku's control. But right now Huiku is busy defending against the invasion of the tainted blood. This formation actually has the tendency to treat Xiao Yan and Xiao Budian as one of their own. Even though Huiku was wholeheartedly defending against the invasion of the tainted blood, he still gave the golden arhats an order. Instantly 24 giants that were 30 meters tall charged towards Lin Feng with large strides. Don't mention that they were all foundation establishment stage cultivators mana level. Just their height and bulk was enough to make people's hearts tremble. A golden arhat was the first to arrive, a large hand directly enveloping the top of Lin Feng's head. Under the pressure of the vigorous mana, Lin Feng only felt that the space around him was locked. Even the air was frozen. A strong wind blew against his face, but the dust on the ground couldn't even fly up. It was all firmly pressed down. Lin Feng took a deep breath, both feet stepping on the ground, the mana around his body moving at full speed. The Tao technique he used was not the 9 Heavens Thunder technique, nor was it the art of Akala, nor was it the art of Blue Ocean River. The Tao technique that Lin Feng used was precisely the Ksitigarbha Sutra, that should have belonged to Zhu Yi. He didn't even let go of the art of Blue Ocean River, much less let go of this top Buddhist Tao technique, that is on the same level as the art of Akala. Even though he didn't successfully cultivate the golden Ksitigarbha body, right now Lin Feng has already obtained a bit of the true meaning of being patient and unmoving like the earth, thinking quietly and deeply like a secret. The current Lin Feng was like the vast and boundless earth, silently bearing the weight of all things in the world. No matter how violent and overbearing you are, I will not move. The golden arhat's movements clearly slowed down for a moment. He was refined from the relic of a Buddhist supreme being. Even though he doesn't have any thoughts right now, and doesn't have any consciousness, but some scattered memories deep in his soul still exist. He felt that the target of his attack seemed to be a fellow Buddhist. This made him very resistant. Huiku also sensed something and was instantly stunned. This is the Ksitigarbha Sutra. How can a Taoist know so many of our great Thunder Monastery's secret Tao techniques? Could it be that he's actually also a Buddhist, pretending to be a Taoist to disguise himself? Just as he was perplexed, another wave of feeling came. It was someone actually trying to collect a certain relic, that was the eye of the formation. Huiku was instantly furious. 2 little beasts, how dare you? Chapter 45. Huiku controlled the golden arhat to attack Lin Feng. Lin Feng used the Ksitigarbha Sutra to deal with it, temporarily blocking the golden arhat's attack. Even though he was surprised that Lin Feng actually studied the Ksitigarbha Sutra overnight, Huiku's heart that was hanging in the air before was half relaxed, because he felt that Lin Feng's resistance wasn't strong. Don't mention the golden elixir period. He wasn't even at the foundation establishment stage. Hui Ku sneered. With just this bit of ability, you want to show off in front of this poor monk? If I knew you were just a facade, this poor monk wouldn't need to use the formation to help you. Lin Feng faintly looked at him, his tone indifferent as he said, You're just a frog at the bottom of a well, guarding the remains of your ancestors and spouting nonsense here. Hui Ku's expression changed. Damn ox nose, do you dare to say that again? Lin Feng calmly shook his head. This formation is the source of your arrogance? Today I will dispel this illusion of yours, and let you know your true colors. Hui Ku laughed from extreme anger. This poor monk will first strangle your ox nose to death. You can block one arhat, but, putting his palms together, Hui Ku's tone was awe-inspiring. But 24 of them, can you still block them? With a thought, the 24 golden arhats surrounded Lin Feng together. Each arhat was several tens of meters tall. Surrounding him together, it instantly created a pressure that covered the sky and destroyed everything. Hui Ku stared at Lin Feng and said word by word. Today this poor monk will definitely send you to hell. The art of Akala, the Ksitigarbha Sutra, you have to obediently spit them out for this poor monk. These are all secret techniques of my great thunder monastery. How can we allow an evil creature like you to take them for yourself? Lin Feng calmly raised his head to look at the golden arhats surrounding him. In terms of height and size, it was as if he had come to a country of giants. Just a small formation. I don't even need to personally act. My 2 disciples are enough. Hui Ku was stunned. He suddenly sensed that there were actually people trying to take away a certain Saraira. That was the eye of the formation. Hui Ku was instantly enraged. 2 little beasts, how dare you? When Lin Feng attracted most of Hui Ku's attention, Xiao Yin and Xiao Budian were ignored by the monk. In Hui Ku's view, one was at the 6th level of Qi disciple, and the other was at the 7th level of Qi disciple. Just the suppression of the Buddhist light formation on their minds was enough to make them collapse. But the Thundershock staff and golden paper displayed their use. Not only did they help the 2 resist the pressure of the formation, they even made the formation make a wrong judgment, mistaking the 2 of them as its own people. This way, Xiao Yin took the lead and walked to a corner of the formation. Under the faint golden haze, there was a shining spot on the ground. Upon closer inspection, it was a Saraira. The little guy cheered. It really is as Master said. Before making a move, Lin Feng already told them that this 24 Heaven Arhat formation is open and above board. It only has the effect of trapping and killing the enemy. The formation itself doesn't have any confusing properties. When Hui Ku placed the formation, he scattered the Saraira. After the Saraira landed on the ground according to a certain pattern, their position won't move. Remember the positions of these Saraira, and you can find them after entering the formation. It's just that the attack power of this formation is too strong, transforming into 24 golden arhats with the strength of foundation establishment stage cultivators. As soon as the enemy enters the formation, they will be surrounded and attacked from all sides. They basically have no power to find and destroy the Saraira, that is the eye of the formation. Now that Lin Feng attracted the attention of the formation and Hui Ku, Xiao Yan and the little guy instantly found a chance to search for the Saraira. The Saraira landed on the ground, but it didn't stay still. Instead, it deeply embedded itself into the ground and emitted a faint golden radiance, dyeing the surrounding ground gold. Xiao Yin lifted his foot and forcefully stomped on the golden ground, emitting a low muffled sound. From the rebounding force, this golden ground was even harder than fine iron. It was clear that it was affected by the magic power within the Saraira. The 2 brothers looked at each other. Xiao Yin nodded. Do it, I'll protect you. The little guy took out the golden paper and approached the Saraira. As soon as he approached, the Saraira immediately emitted a Buddhist sound, as if it was warning him. Good stuff, good stuff. The little guy was happy and revealed 2 sparkling little canine teeth. He shook the golden paper in his hand and covered the Saraira. As soon as the golden paper touched the Saraira immediately calmed down. The little guy's following actions were even more violent. Both of his hands spread open, and his 2 claws grabbed the ground, forcefully digging a hole in the ground. The little guy used strength with both of his hands and dug out a piece of soil like pulling out a radish. With a forceful slap, the piece of soil that was still emitting a faint golden radiance and was as hard as fine iron was immediately smashed to pieces by the little guy. Only the Saraira remained unharmed, silently falling in the middle of the golden paper. Xiao Yin looked at this scene, and the corner of his mouth twitched. The entire process was as if a man who looked harmless on the outside used the most gentle, most polite, and most harmless method to trick a girl into drinking a knockout drug. After she fainted, he immediately revealed his true appearance and forcefully executed the girl on the spot. You guys sure have guts. Hui Ku's angry shout entered his ears, following that a huge golden arhat suddenly charged in front of him and threw a punch towards the top of the little guy's head. As soon as Xiao Yin woke up, he immediately followed the method Lin Feng taught him and activated the Thundershock staff, facing the golden arhat. When the golden arhat's fist came into contact with the Thundershock staff, the Thundershock staff immediately exploded with a dazzling Buddhist radiance. As the Buddhist radiance circulated, the golden arhat's movements instantly became hesitant. Half of the power he struck out was retracted by itself. The remaining half of the power couldn't do anything to the Thundershock staff. This Buddhist magic item displayed a powerful defensive ability and directly deflected the house-sized fist. At this time, the little guy had already used the golden paper to completely wrap the Saraira. The golden paper isolated the Saraira's Buddhist radiance, and the magic power within the Saraira was instantly sealed, unable to leak out at all. Hui Ku was dumbstruck. This 24-heaven arhat formation of his was incomparably powerful. If one had to talk about flaws, other than the formation being unable to move, it would be the 24 Sarairas as the eye of the formation. Not a single one could be missing. As long as one Saraira was missing, the formation would collapse. The Sanskrit sounds disappeared by his ears. The sandalwood fragrance also gradually dispersed, and the faint golden haze also dispersed with the wind. The 24 heaven arhat formation, that once made Elder Vulture, and the other two foundation establishment stage cultivators unable to retaliate, was broken just like that. Xiao Yan and the little guy were also a bit dazed. They didn't think that it would actually be as Lin Feng said, that the formation was broken so easily. Lin Feng secretly let out a sigh of relief. His two disciples didn't know that he was actually walking on a tightrope again, only this time he succeeded again. Success couldn't be separated from many calculations and a large amount of luck. First of all, Hui Ku himself was trapped by the tainted blood, and more than half of his energy was used to clean up the tainted blood. He didn't have much energy to control the 24 heaven arhat formation. Otherwise he would be able to discover Xiao Yan and the little guy's little movements at the first moment and stop them in time. Secondly, because of the system's hidden benefits, it made Hui Ku unable to see through Lin Feng's true level of cultivation and subconsciously treated him as a great enemy. Not mentioning the fact that this attracted all of Hui Ku's attention. At the start Hui Ku also didn't dare to use his full strength to attack fiercely and only used an arhat to test the waters, allowing Lin Feng to successfully withstand this most crucial first wave of attacks, and buy time for Xiao Yan and the little guy. Then, just as Lin Feng expected, the Thundershock staff and the golden paper, Buddhist magic tools indeed easily resonate. Under the situation, where Hui Ku this manipulator didn't affect them too much, they successfully resisted the formation attack and collected the Saraira. Finally, and also the most important point, it's still because Hui Ku was invaded by the tainted blood, and his own strength was greatly damaged. Otherwise, even if his formation was broken, with Hui Ku's foundation establishment stage cultivation, Lin Feng still wouldn't be his opponent. These are all Lin Feng's winning factors. Without any one of them, he wouldn't be able to complete his plan. Of course, without any one of them, Lin Feng would definitely continue to patiently wait for an opportunity and wouldn't take the initiative to find Hui Ku. If he dares to make a move, then he has the confidence to succeed. Lin Feng turned his head towards the little guy and Xiao Yan and said, "Collect the other Saraira as well." The little guy instantly became joyful and wandered around, practically treating this place as his own vegetable garden, and continuing the happy task of pulling out carrots. He quickly collected the remaining 23 Saraira, and along with the first one, he handed them all to Lin Feng. Seeing his lifeblood land in Lin Feng's hands, Hui Ku's eyes gradually became blood red and he madly roared, "Bastard ox nose!" Under his shock and anger, his own mana instantly became unstable. The cyan flames were unable to suppress the tainted blood, and the Buddhist light protecting his body was instantly broken through by the tainted blood. Lin Feng looked at Hui Ku, whose entire body was covered in tainted blood, and inwardly made a peace sign. He had the little guy collect the other Saraira to purposefully anger Hui Ku. If this big monk was directly dissolved by the tainted blood, then that would be the best. But Hui Ku was destined to disappoint him. This irascible big monk suddenly calmed down and retracted all of the mana protecting his body, allowing the tainted blood to cover his entire body and crazily corrode the mana he painstakingly cultivated for many years. Hui Ku was also unmoved and only coldly stared at Lin Feng. At this moment, the craziness, irascibility, and anger on Hui Ku's body all disappeared, and only icy killing intent remained in his gaze. Lin Feng inwardly cursed. Sure enough, Hui Ku coldly said, "This poor monk is destined to go to hell, but before I leave, I will definitely drag you along with me." The next moment, an astonishing mana fluctuation exploded from Hui Ku's body. A small black hole actually appeared above his head, and everything around the black hole was sucked in. Countless dust, sand, and even the tainted blood in the nether blood river beside Hui Ku all flew into the air and flew towards the black hole. Under the enormous suction force, even Xiao Yan and the little guy couldn't stand steadily. Their feet left the ground and were actually going to be directly sucked into the black hole. Hui Ku madly roared, "Evil demon, take this poor monk's final attack, extreme samsara. Enter the gate of samsara together and go to hell." Before he even finished speaking, a streak of incomparably resplendent and incomparably violent pure white lightning had already arrived in front of him, blasting Hui Ku, who had already exhausted all of his mana, into a bloody mist that filled the sky. Northern Aurora Mystic Light. Lin Feng extended his right hand and made a shooting gesture with his fingers, then brought it back to his lips and lightly blew. "I was just waiting for you, damned baldy." Chapter 46. Hui Ku lost the 24 Heaven Arhut formation, and he himself was also invaded by the most evil and filthy blood in the world. In his rage, he actually used a method to perish together with Lin Feng, using the secret Buddhist ability Extreme Joy Samsara, wanting to drag Lin Feng down with him. Lin Feng was already on guard. He has always been paying attention to Hui Ku's movements. Seeing this monk actually disregard the corrosion of the filthy blood and retract his protective mana, he immediately knew that the other party is going to play with his life. The Northern Aurora sword immediately attacked. Before Hui Ku's spell had even completely unfolded, a beam of incomparably tyrannical lightning first struck this monk to death. Hui Ku was already dead. The black hole above his head instantly lost control and became chaotic. Lin Feng felt the spiritual energy within the underground palace suddenly become chaotic. His expression couldn't help but change slightly, shouting towards his two disciples, "Both be careful." Before his voice landed, the black hole exploded with a loud bang, mixing together with the impure spiritual energy within the underground palace, and actually producing an effect similar to the teleportation formation, teleportation. Under the effect of the void turbulence, Lin Feng was dizzy. Strong light flickered in front of his eyes, the scenery continuously changing. Before it was still a surging river of blood, the next instant it was a pitch-black cave. In just a second, the scenery in Lin Feng's line of sight changed quite a few times, as if an incomparably long time had passed, but in reality it was only a few seconds. The dizzy Lin Feng heavily fell onto the ground. Lin Feng shook his head, only coming to his senses after a while. Raising his head to look, he discovered that he was currently in a tunnel. Who knows how far he was teleported? He couldn't hear the surging and roaring of the Nether Blood River. Presumably he was teleported very far away. His two disciples are also not by his side. Looks like they were teleported to another place in the void turbulence. Lin Feng laughed bitterly. This is a bit troublesome. But it's not that there isn't any good news. Lin Feng weighed the storage bag in his hand, his face revealing a smile. In the chaos, his eyes and hands were quick, grabbing Hui Ku's storage bag. That monk's savings have now all become his spoils of war. Of course, the most important spoils of war were the 24 relics. Lin Feng found the diagram of the 24 Heaven Arhat formation in Hui Ku's storage bag. It was a thick booklet, and there were quite a few diagrams. There were quite a few corrections on the first few pages. Presumably, Hui Ku himself often pondered over it, and continuously improved the formation, which was why it had the power it had today. This formation diagram, together with the 24 relics, could be used to arrange the 24 Heaven Arhat formation. However, Lin Feng needed to first refine these relics, remove Hui Ku's mana imprint, and add in Lin Feng's own. Only then would he be able to use them freely. Other than the formation diagram, the storage pouch also contained the art of Akala that Hui Ku cultivates. Lin Feng took a look and sure enough, it was a complete set of scriptures, only lacking the general principles at the beginning. Lin Feng smiled. The first half of the scripture in his hands, plus Hui Ku here. It was a complete version of the art of Akala. There were also a number of other pills. Even though they were what Lin Feng needed, there weren't any particularly attractive good goods. After all, the Great Thunder Monastery had already been destroyed 20 years ago. Even if Hui Ku brought out any precious pills from the monastery, he would have eaten them himself. The only thing worth noting was that Hui Ku actually brought 2 pill recipes. One was the Thunderous Great Returning Pill. It was the Great Thunder Monastery's world-famous holy healing medicine. It had miraculous effects in treating injuries to the body, reviving the dead, growing flesh and bones. The other one made Lin Feng salivate. The barrier-breaking pill, specialized in helping cultivators break through bottlenecks in cultivation. The bottleneck of a small realm. After taking the barrier-breaking pill, you would immediately break through, from training chi to foundation establishment, from foundation establishment to golden elixir. Taking this pill would also greatly increase the success rate. It was just that the ingredients needed to make these 2 pills were all extremely precious, and the success rate wasn't high. 1. Lin Feng didn't know how to make pills. 2. He didn't have the ingredients, so he could only look enviously. Put it away. When the time comes, I'll give it to that brat Xiao Yin to slowly ponder over. The system said that he has talent in medicine making. It seems like it wasn't boasting. Lin Feng put away the pill recipe. Let's hurry and find a way out. Meet up with the 2 little fellows, then go find Zhu Yi. Zhu Yi sigh. I wonder how that brat is doing now. Lin Feng didn't think that there would be such a damn thing like spatial teleportation in the underground palace. In the end, not only did he not get his 3rd disciple, he even got separated from the 2 he already had. Fuck, it can't be that after working hard for 50 years, it's all gone back to before liberation in one night? How can I get out of here? Lin Feng was worried in his heart when suddenly the system's voice rang out in his mind. The host is already close to the side quest item, Black Cloud Flag. It can't be. Lin Feng was stunned. This was really unintentional. He didn't even put much thought into the side quest. Who knew that the 2 spatial teleportations in the underground palace would actually send him to the front of the Black Cloud Flag? This Black Cloud Flag is Taoist He Yun's life weapon. And Taoist He Yun is the one who opened up this Black Cloud underground palace. Lin Feng's heart suddenly moved, and he hurriedly checked the quest again. Because Lin Feng was now close to the Black Cloud Flag, the quest description also added a description of the Black Cloud Flag. Black Cloud Flag, Taoist He Yun's life weapon, refined from Taoist He Yun's famous spell, Heaven's Great Shift. It can teleport in a short distance, attack and defense in one, and it can also carry people in flight. It has endless uses. Lin Feng's eyes lit up. So that's how it is. There are always sudden spatial teleportations in this underground palace. I'm afraid it has something to do with this Black Cloud Flag. If I can obtain the Black Cloud Flag, leaving this underground palace will be as easy as turning my hand over. Maybe it can even help me find those 3 little fellows. Even though there is a way out, Lin Feng became even more careful. The black cloud flag being nearby means that the Nether Blood River is also nearby. And it's also in this underground palace, where the source of the Nether Blood River is. Sure enough, as Lin Feng walked forward for a while, he heard the sound of rolling water coming from the distance. After a few turns, he reached the end of the tunnel. Exiting the tunnel, what appeared in front of Lin Feng was an enormous underground lake. Only that this lake is not water, but full of Blood River true water. A nauseating stench assaulted his nostrils, almost making Lin Feng faint. In the air above the lake, there is a pitch-black crack. That is a crack in space. Space is like a piece of paper. Everything else is the scenery on the painting, and this crack is as if a hole was forcibly torn open on the paper. From within the crack, extremely foul-smelling blood continuously flowed out, falling into the lake below like a waterfall. On the surface of the lake, this dense dark red blood energy pervaded the air. Standing here, without even really coming into contact with the foul blood, Lin Feng felt his mana become sluggish. Just that dense blood energy can practically pollute Lin Feng's mana. Lin Feng looked at the blood lake beneath his feet, thinking that there is a passage at the bottom of the blood lake. The source of the Nether Blood River, when he met Hui Ku before, should be here. Just that he doesn't know where that blood river flows to. The system notification sound rang out once again. This time it directly pointed out the location of the black cloud flag for Lin Feng. Lin Feng composed himself, preparing to first collect this magic tool. Boring. Pa. Just as Lin Feng was preparing to collect the black cloud flag, a sentence suddenly rang out beside his ear. Immediately after, there was the sound of jade items shattering on the ground. Lin Feng was shocked in his heart. There was actually someone else here, and he didn't sense anything at all before. Looking towards the source of the voice, he saw a white-clothed youth wearing a green bamboo hat leaning against a large rock, holding an exquisite white jade cup in his hand, staring at Lin Feng with a smile that wasn't a smile on his face. Lin Feng's pupils abruptly contracted. Not far from the bamboo hat youth, a large pile of white jade fragments piled up on the ground, like a small mountain. Silently flowing between the crystal-clear fragments, there was still quite a bit of dark red wine, looking a bit similar to the foul blood in the Nether Blood River. The bamboo hat youth raised the white jade cup in his hand, the delicious grape wine in the cup. He only drank a mouthful, then smacked his lips, looking up at the sky and sighing. Boring. Pa. Before he finished speaking, the white jade cup together with the wine in the cup fell onto the ground together, becoming a member of that pile of fragments. The corner of Lin Feng's eyes twitched. Right now this pile of pure white jade fragments and the fine wine flowing within. In his eyes it was like a mountain peak. A mountain peak constructed from gurgling fresh blood and ghastly white bones. The bamboo hat youth flipped his palm, and an identical white jade cup appeared in his palm. The cup was already filled with fine wine. He shook the wine cup in his hand, turning his head to look at Lin Feng, grinning, the white pockmarks on his face jumping together. Looking at your attire, you're the Taoist who gave the Blaze Sword sect a hard time? You don't look like much. Chapter 47. This bamboo hat youth's body exudes an aura that makes Lin Feng feel an extreme sense of danger. A voice in Lin Feng's heart is continuously shouting, "Run! Run! Run!" This is completely a kind of biological instinct, an instinctive warning when encountering a situation that could kill you. Lin Feng has to continuously force himself to be able to ensure that his body stays where it is, and not immediately turn around and run. The bamboo hat youth does not conceal the mana fluctuations on his body, telling Lin Feng that he is facing a golden elixir period cultivator. And it's also a golden elixir period cultivator that is even stronger than elderly of the Blaze Sword sect. Lin Feng bitterly smiled in his heart. Even though I pretend to be a master in front of my disciple, that's because I have no other choice. In the end I'm still just a small shrimp at the Chi disciple stage. Don't keep sending this kind of golden elixir period opponent. I really can't take it. The flying swords of the Shu Mountain Sword Sect disciples are all different, but the scabbards are all engraved with the same landscape pattern. Like the flame robe of the Blaze Sword Sect, it's a symbol of identity that everyone knows. Lin Feng naturally also recognized it at a glance, trying to find happiness in bitterness, he thought. Yan Mingyue Hui Ku, plus this guy in front of me. I can't believe that in a short few months I've run into all the disciples of the 3 holy lands in the world. Even though his calf is a bit cramped, Lin Feng still secretly clenched the sarira in his palm, ready to risk his life at any moment. It's impossible for him to resign himself to death. Lu Yang drank the fine wine in the white jade cup in one gulp, jumping up from the large rock, tilting his head looking at Lin Feng. Didn't you say that you also brought a child? Where is he? Lin Feng was originally preparing to cast the 24 Heaven Arhut formation, but hearing Lu Yang's question he suddenly had a thought, having an even better idea. After planning it out in his heart, and feeling that there aren't too many loopholes, Lin Feng started his performance. Child, what child? Lin Feng revealed a respectful and submissive expression, his face blank. Lu Yang frowned. Don't put on an act. It's that 3 or 4-year-old child that you brought along with you when you fought with the people from the Blaze Sword Sect. Lin Feng's expression was shocked. Even though I have little experience, I have also heard of the name of the Blaze Sword Sect. They are one of the members of the 9 Heavens Sword Alliance, one of the few sword sects in the world. How would a small wandering cultivator like me dare to provoke them? When Lu Yang heard this, he looked him up and down suspiciously. It's this outfit. Lin Feng's face was full of a bitter smile. I am only a Qi disciple level 10 cultivator. How would I have the guts to provoke the Blaze Sword Sect? While speaking, Lin Feng released his mana fluctuations, casually using his palm. His mana crushed a rock. Lu Yang naturally didn't care about this level of magic power, but he could clearly determine the depth of Lin Feng's cultivation. However, he still felt strange in his heart. You didn't make a move, but I can't see through your cultivation level? Lin Feng smiled awkwardly and said, I inadvertently obtained a little thing that can hide my cultivation level. He swallowed his saliva, a fawning smile on his face, and took out a ribbon from his chest and handed it to Lu Yang. Please have a look. The ribbon is actually the most common item, but after Lin Feng took out the ribbon, he took the initiative to release his mana, making Lu Yang think that the reason he couldn't see through his cultivation level was indeed because of the ribbon. Lu Yang took the ribbon and couldn't feel any formations operating within it. After testing it himself, he was also unable to hide his cultivation level. He looked suspiciously at Lin Feng. But right now Lin Feng no longer has any secrets in front of him. He is clearly Qi disciple level 10. Why didn't it have any effect when I used it? Lu Yang asked. Maybe it's because my cultivation level is low. Lin Feng said embarrassedly. It's just a little smokescreen. It's not worth a Mount Shu Sword Sect cultivator to take it to heart. Lu Yang smiled. You know I'm from Mount Shu Sword Sect? Lin Feng's eyes glanced at the scabbard at Lu Yang's waist and smiled. Mount Shu Sword Sect, the world's #1 holy land for the way of the sword. Its reputation is like thunder to the ears. No matter how ignorant I am, I naturally know. Lu Yang curled his lips, completely losing interest in Lin Feng. Boring. He paused and then asked, have you seen a young Taoist dressed like you in this underground palace with a 3 or 4-year-old child? Lin Feng shook his head blankly. Lu Yang asked, then what are you doing in this underground palace? I came out to train and accidentally entered this underground palace. Lin Feng answered a little guiltily. Lu Yang sneered, boundless killing intent spreading out, piercing Lin Feng's body so much that his whole body trembled. Don't be angry, don't be angry, don't be angry. Lin Feng hurriedly said, I actually heard that there's a treasure under this underground palace. So I wanted to try my luck and see if there's any opportunity. Treasure? Lu Yang was a little surprised. What treasure? Lin Feng answered honestly. Rumor has it that 1,000 years ago, this was the cave abode of wandering cultivator Taoist He Yun. After Taoist He Yun died in the Blood River, his life-bound immortal artifact, the Black Cloud Flag, was left in this cave abode. Lu Yang curled his lips. Taoist He Yin? I've never heard of him. He seems to be a cultivator of the golden elixir period. A golden elixir period immortal artifact, it's nothing much. Lin Feng smiled. Great immortal is powerful, so of course you don't care. It's just that I heard that this black cloud flag has the ability to move through the void. It must be very rare, so I wanted to try my luck. Move through the void? Lu Yang was finally interested. Magic arts and immortal artifacts that could move through the void were very rare, and had endless uses. Even he was tempted. Lu Yang carefully sensed for a moment, then said with a frown, I can't sense the existence of any treasure here. Lin Feng sneaked a glance at the blood lake at the side, unable to speak. Lu Yang noticed his actions and laughed. The thing is in this nether blood river? Separated by the true water of the blood river. It's indeed hard for my mana to probe, but... He looked at Lin Feng with a smile that wasn't a smile. How do I know if you're lying to me or not? How about this, you go down and look for it for me first. I originally had the intention to search for treasure, but when I found out that the treasure was actually in the nether blood river, I was in a dilemma. I was unwilling to leave, but I didn't dare to go down. Lin Feng hurriedly shook his head. With my insignificant cultivation, how can I withstand the corrosion of the tainted blood in the nether blood river? I'll turn into dregs in a moment. His face was full of fear, looking at the nether blood river below, like avoiding snakes and scorpions. Seemingly in order to stay as far away from the tainted blood as possible, Lin Feng climbed onto a stone beam, sticking out from the cliff above the blood lake with a swish, looking at the surging nether blood river below with a face of fear. Lu Yang laughed out loud. This true water of the blood river is the most evil and filthy thing in the world. It can contaminate all magic power and artifacts. It's indeed incomparably vicious, but unfortunately it can't stump me. Even if the thing is really under the nether blood river, it doesn't matter. Instead it can make me less bored. However, Lu Yang looked at Lin Feng with a cold smile. It better be that there really is something down here. Otherwise I'll make you regret being born in your mother's womb. Lin Feng revealed an expression of sincere admiration on the surface. Treasures can only be possessed by those who are capable. It's the will of the heavens for you to obtain this treasure. For me to be able to watch from the side is already the fortune of 3 lifetimes. Lu Yang laughed proudly. Lin Feng had a smiling face at the side, but he was laughing coldly in his heart. I'm watching from the side. It's just watching how you die. Chapter 48. Amidst his laughter, Lu Yang waved his hand and 9 blood-red banners flew out. Lin Feng's line of sight looked at the 9 blood-red banners flying in the air and landing above the blood lake. These blood-red banners actually resonated with the tainted blood in the blood lake. The tainted blood in the lake slowly undulated like it was alive, breathing in and out, containing a strange rhythm. And those blood-red banners fluttered in the air without any wind, unfolding and fluttering. The rhythm was actually the same as the tainted blood in the lake. Both sides resonated even more, jumping even more intensely and clearly. These 9 blood-red banners were actually refined from Blood River True Water? Lin Feng said in his heart. This is a genuine magic item of the demonic path. I didn't think this kid actually had this up his sleeves. Lu Yang looked at Lin Feng from the corner of his eyes, laughing weirdly saying, This is a magic item I obtained from a demonic cultivator I killed a few days ago. It was refined from the tainted blood in this nether blood river. Looking at the 9 blood-red banners fluttering above the nether blood river, Lin Feng's expression did not change. Cold sweat had already appeared on his palms. This guy's cultivation is high enough, and he also has this kind of magic item in his hands. If it wasn't for him scheming against me, I'd be dead for sure today. But no matter how crafty you are, you still have to drink my foot-washing water. Lin Feng stood on the stone beam, bowing respectfully. Immortal horse, I wish you success in advance. Lu Yang smiled noncommittally. He's just arrogant, he's not stupid. But the problem is that Lin Feng's Qi disciple level 10 cultivation right now. To him in the golden elixir period, he's really just like a secular mortal. He can crush him with one finger. Lu Yang would naturally put in some effort against an opponent whose strength wasn't too far apart. But the difference between the two sides was so huge that he could easily crush him with just strength. Lu Yang was too lazy to use his brain again. Other than this nether blood river in front of me, there's nothing else that can pose a threat to me. Right now, with these 9 blood river banners forming a formation to protect me, I'm not afraid of the tainted blood contaminating my mana. It's absolutely safe. Thinking up to here, Lu Yang snorted and stepped forward, directly stepping into the blood lake. Lin Feng stood on the stone beam. He looked calm on the surface, but he was actually extremely nervous. Now that Lu Yang had entered the blood lake, Lin Feng let out a sigh of relief. He looked at Lu Yang calmly standing in the center of the blood lake with 9 blood-red banners around him, blocking the surging blood. Lin Feng secretly curled his lips. You really think this is your home field? The moment Lu Yang entered the blood lake, the lake filled with filthy blood immediately boiled, as if it was boiling. From time to time, huge blood bubbles would burst. Smiling, Lu Yang's expression relaxed. He raised his hand and formed a spell. The 9 blood river banners around him swayed together, and a faint dark purple blood light flowed on the surface of the banners. As the bloody light flowed, it gradually fused together and went deep into the nether blood river beneath Lu Yang's feet. In an instant, the boiling blood lake showed signs of calming down. Seeing this, Lu Yang couldn't help but smile and look up at Lin Feng. Lin Feng was also smiling, but it was completely different from the humble and submissive smile from before. His smile was incomparably wanton and ostentatious. Lu Yang's expression darkened. What are you smiling about? Lin Feng smiled and said, I'm smiling that the good show has just begun, the best is yet to come. Speaking, Lin Feng forcefully stomped his foot, heavily stepping on the stone beam he was standing on, directly shattering the stone beam. Countless stone fragments fell towards the blood lake like rain. Lu Yang's brows furrowed, an expression of shock and anger appearing on his face. But very quickly, his eyes narrowed into slits, suddenly discovering that after Lin Feng stepped on the stone beam, a skeleton and a black flag were actually revealed in the stone beam. The skeleton emitted a faint golden light. Lu Yang knew that this was the result of a golden elixir period cultivator passing away. The mana of the golden elixir did not dissipate and fused with the corpse, similar to Buddhist relics. However, Lu Yang was more concerned about the jet black flag. The black flag looked extremely ordinary. Not a trace of mana fluctuations flowed out from it, to the extent that Lu Yang didn't notice its existence at all. This flag was precisely the black cloud flag that Lin Feng wanted to take. The black cloud flag was not at the bottom of the blood lake, but on the stone beam directly above the blood lake. Seeing the skeleton and the black cloud flag, how could Lu Yang not know that he was tricked? But before he could react, after Lin Feng stepped on the stone beam, he immediately grabbed the flagpole and pulled out the black cloud flag from the stone beams. This pull by Lin Feng was like throwing a spark into a pot of oil. The entire underground palace rumbled and shook, as if the heavens were falling and the earth was splitting. Lu Yang's expression changed greatly, wanting to fly out of the blood lake. Who knew that the nether blood river, that was still under his control a moment ago, would also suddenly rebel? Countless amounts of tainted blood shot into the sky like a volcanic eruption. And at this time, the originally ordinary black cloud flag also emitted intense mana fluctuations. Black light flowed, revealing its original appearance. Seeing this scene, Lin Feng silently laughed. What he expected was not wrong. The Nether Blood River is not an ordinary river. Its specialty is to pollute and devour all living beings, so it is extremely dangerous. Once it travels through the netherworld and into the human world, it will cause a huge disaster and do evil everywhere. But after such a long time, the Nether Blood River did not spread towards the surface and was instead forced to flow underground. The reason is because of Taoist Master He Yun's remains and this black cloud flag. Even though Taoist Master He Yun is a wandering cultivator, his feelings of bemoaning the state of the universe and pitying the fate of mankind are worthy of everyone's respect. After he accidentally opened up the spatial crack of the netherworld and caused the Blood River to invade the human world, he did not evade responsibility and used his own strength to seal the gap in the Blood River. If it wasn't for Taoist Master He Yun's remains magic tools suppressing this Blood River tributary, don't mention this underground palace, the Nether Blood River would probably have flooded the Great Zhou's imperial city long ago. For many years, the remains magic tool and the Nether Blood River have formed a wonderful but fragile balance. Both sides have always been in a stalemate. That's why the Black Cloud Flag's mana did not leak out, and Liu Yang during the Golden Elixir period was also unable to detect its location, because the Black Cloud Flag's mana was all cancelled out by the Nether Blood River. Now that Lin Feng pulled out the Black Cloud Flag and lost the mana suppression of the Black Cloud Flag, the Nether Blood River immediately roared out like a ferocious beast coming out of its cage. Liu Yang was flustered. The tainted blood around him was like a monstrous flood about to drown him. Right now the 9 Blood River banners were like flickering candles in the wind. Not only were they unable to help Liu Yang, they were instead like wanderers returning home, about to throw themselves into the embrace of the Nether Blood River. What Liu Yang trains in is in the end not the Blood River secret technique. When the Nether Blood River was calm, he could still rely on the Blood River banners to protect himself. But now that the Blood River has entered a berserk state, he instantly fell into a dangerous situation. Liu Yang's eyes were scarlet red, staring at Lin Feng. Taoist, die! Not caring about the blood water that had already madly tainted his mana, Liu Yang patted his sword sheath, and a sword aura, even more berserk than the Blood River, shot straight at Lin Feng above his head. The most overbearing Shaoshang sword of Mount Shu's 6 meridian swords is also the most overbearing sword technique in this world. Before the sword aura even leapt out of the sword sheath, Lin Feng already felt himself being enveloped by an extremely cold killing intent, as if even his soul was about to be frozen.